We will start, yes, the meeting is being recorded, and yes, I do wish to continue. We will start with introductions, and since I'm already yammering on, I will introduce myself first. My name is Julie Johnson. I'm a Historic Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated by the community at large. Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Hummel. I'm a landscape architect, and I was nominated by the American Society of Landscape Architects.
Thanks, Erin. Graham.
I am Graham Johnson, Preservation Project Manager, nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Gary.
Hello, I'm Gary Petrie. I'm an architect, and I was nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Anne? Did we lose Anne?
Oh, yes, we did. Oh, she's just joining back in again, looks like.
Okay.
Just in time. And you jumped out right when we were ready to have your introduction. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Okay. Is my audio okay?
Yes, it's great.
Okay. We're introducing ourselves.
Yes.
Hi. I'm Ann Wattenberg. I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects. I'm an architect.
Great, and thank you very much. Our first order of business is the approval of the meeting record from September 7, 2021. Are there any comments, changes that anyone wishes to make? I'm seeing none. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting records as presented?
Madam Chair, I will move to approve the meeting records from September 7th, 2021.
Graham, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Erin, thank you for seconding. Okay, I will take the roll vote then. Erin?
Aye.
Graham?
Oh, aye.
Gary?
I wasn't there, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Anne?
I also wasn't there, so I'm going to abstain.
All right, well, I was there, and so I will vote aye as well. Is that enough for the motion to carry, Jen?
Yeah, Adam, Nate told us at the last meeting that that meeting records don't need a 5-person agreement. It just is the majority of the people present.
Well, then there we have it. The motion
Hopefully that's
carries.
okay.
Yeah, the motion carries then. Thank you very much. So the next order of business is at the beginning of every meeting, we set aside a period of time for anyone from the public that wishes to comment on anything in historic preservation in general, not any of the particular case or the projects that we are going to be looking at later, but in historic preservation in the city of Denver, it's just in general. You would have 2 minutes to speak. And if you are joining by phone, you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name, phone number. And if you're joining by computer, you can click on the little hand raise function that Zoom provides. Jen, are you guys seeing anybody?
I don't see any hands raised, and no one has joined by phone right now.
Okay, well, that's great. Okay, then let's move on to the consent agenda, which is actually very simple this time because there is no consent agenda. So let's move on to the next item, and that is the public hearing.
And I'm gonna let Kara share her screen, so I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay.
Sorry, just muting Emily.
That's okay.
Wanted to make sure everyone is seeing that. The
Yes.
public
Yes.
hearing Process slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we are, the public hearing this afternoon is for the La Alma Lincoln Park Customized Design Guidelines. The staff, let's see, the commissioners can question staff after they give their presentation. And then after that questioning period, we will have time for public comment, and each person is allowed 3 minutes per person. And then the staff has a chance to clarify if we have any questions. The commission will deliberate, and then the commission will we'll hear a motion and then we'll vote to approve if that's the case. So the staff, we have Brittany, Abby, and Kara. Are you ready?
Yes, yes.
Of course you are. Thanks, Kara.
No problem. So there are, if there are any members of the public who would like to join, here are the directions, or would like to comment, here are the directions to join or to participate at that time. So we wanted to do just a really quick overview of the La Alma Lincoln Park Historic Cultural District and a very brief overview of the customized design guidelines before you guys discuss. So here's the designation process. It started back in 2016 when members of the community came forward and started talking amongst themselves that they might like to do a historic district. There was an extensive amount of community outreach. The community hired a consultant to help them with their designation application, and then worked extensively with members of the community, both current and former longtime residents of the neighborhood. They prepared a designation application. Landmark staff worked with them to finalize that. There were a series of community meetings that were hosted, and then it went to the Landmark Preservation Commission for review, Denver Planning Board for review, multiple meetings before Denver City Council where they reviewed and approved it unanimously. It was then signed by the mayor with the effective date of August 6th. And then to remind you, the Landmark Preservation Commission, we had this as a discussion item in December of 2020. Then in June of 2021 is when it came before a public hearing for the designation application. And then at the 2 meetings in August, the customized design guidelines were discussion items for you guys to look at and think about. As a reminder, the significance of La Alma Lincoln Park is for its history, for its early immigrant working class neighborhood, and its relationship to Burnham Yards and the railroad related industries. It is also significant for its architecture, for its vernacular architectural styles that typically used local materials and laborers and were not often architect designed, and took details from popular styles over time. So there are identifiable architectural styles, but they tend to be a little more simplified than what you might see in Potter Highlands or in areas in Cap Hill. And then finally, it's also significant under cultural criteria for its importance in the Chicano movement, and really being sort of the heart and center of Denver's early Chicano movement. And then also for the evolution of the buildings over time. And that's really seen in sort of the layers of history that you see in the historic fabric of the neighborhood. And that's reflected in the period of significance, which is the time period of the district's historic, architectural, and cultural significance. And that's from 1873 to 1980. And it includes buildings across multiple eras. And so with that in mind, we as the Landmark Preservation staff worked with the community to create customized design guidelines. And these will be a supplemental or a chapter, an appendix within the Denver design guidelines. That's not independent like the 5 Points Historic Cultural District. So we worked with the community on about a year-long process with a series of community engagement meetings to talk about what they thought were important components and characteristics of their neighborhood. And then we as staff drafted design guidelines, and they have been hosted on our website since about April. As part of that process, Landmark staff, so Brittany, Abby, and I looked at every single building within the district. And then for nearly all of the contributing buildings, we created distinctive features. And so we called out what were the distinctive features of every building, because we want this to outlive all of us who have worked on this intensely. We want to make sure that, in 10 years, when the LPC is looking at these particular buildings, they have noted what were some of the distinctive features of these buildings, while also allowing greater flexibility, in particular to materials and porches and some of those kinds of things, fences, site work, that there'll be greater flexibility. And so the distinctive features are called out. It provides consistency for the owners, Landmark Preservation staff, and the commission, noting that these are the important characteristics and elements of the building. and that it's important for their retention and repair, but it also allows for greater flexibility for elements that are not called out. So this is particularly focused for these customized design guidelines on 2 chapters. Chapter 2, preserving historic buildings, and Chapter 5, site and landscape design. There's also one guideline in Chapter 4 that has been called out. The intent language that is at the beginning of this will be part of the customized design guidelines. And then also throughout all of the design guidelines, even outside chapters 2 and 4, the word original will mean original or historic when in reference to this particular historic district. And so what you guys were sent, as well as what was put out for notice, were 2 versions of the customized design guidelines. There's this red line version, which is for illustrative purposes to show what was being cut out and what was being retained. But what you guys are really voting on is the approved final language. So this is what you guys would be approving as that final language. We wanted to include both versions, both for you and any members of the community who are interested, so that they could really see what were the differences between the 2 and what were the changes being made. And so we as Landmark staff are recommending approval of that with a few conditions. If you see in the staff report, one of the great things about having to post it so early is that it gave us a few weeks time off to come back and reread it and notice that we caught a couple of typos that we caught, a couple of things that needed to be a little bit of clarification. And so having that few weeks of time period allowed us as staff to go back and find some typos that we would like to see fixed, and like you guys to make that as part of your condition. We also tried to address your primary comments during the discussion items to include definitions for character windows and include the period of significance in our definition of historic, which were the 2 things that you guys primarily highlighted in your discussion items. And that is the end of the staff presentation. We're happy to answer any questions or move on to public comments and deliberation.
Okay, Kara, thank you very much. Commissioners, have you any questions for Kara and the staff? No, no questions? Well done, Kara. Very nicely done. All right, then it's time for us to go into public comments. Jen, do we have anybody lined up that would like to talk to us?
I don't see any hands raised, but if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand, hit the hand raise button at the bottom of your screen.
I would like to note, I apologize, I didn't note this. Historic Denver wrote a letter of support, which was emailed to you guys. I didn't note that here, and I know they're on the line. So that was what made me think of it. So I apologize for not putting noting that. But yes,
Yeah,
they sent a letter.
that's okay. I read that earlier. Thanks, Kara.
I don't see any hands raised.
No hands raised?
I have one quick question here, looking at guideline 2.16. I know we talked in our last review about character windows versus character defining windows. And it looks like we still have 2.16C mentions the character windows, but it looks like we've moved to character defining in other spots. I just wanted to double back on that one briefly to confirm. Looks like it's on page 5 of the
yeah, sorry, I was trying to make sure I pull it up and was looking at that.
good. We had talked about that, I know, when we reviewed together after your last presentation, Carrie.
We have included both the language character windows and character defining windows. In the early intent language, it talks about, and we use both character windows and character defining. If you would like or feel like we should take it out from on 2.16, it says preserve character defining windows that are readily visible. If you would rather it just be character windows, we could do that. I also would let Brittany and or Abby comment if they have anything that they feel like we should note.
And I think, yeah, my question was maybe even the opposite. If the character windows, which we kind of talked about, versus character defining as being a a term that we use, commonly in preservation language and in the ordinance. Whether, I think that character defining is kind of the, without speaking for everyone, what we're maybe used to seeing, and then the character windows, if we wanted that to also say character defining. And I don't mean to reopen a can of worms either. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, that's helpful. And if you want, I can share my screen if that would be helpful for people. If you give me 1 second to make sure I am sharing the correct item. So we're looking here, I realize this is the red line version, but we're looking at, so there's 2.16 preserve character defining windows that are readily visible. And then under 2.16C, it says retain character windows. Would you like to add retain character defining windows? And I think that, Graham, that's what you're mentioning.
That was the clarification, yeah, that I wanted to I guess bring up for others to comment on. And it may not be a concern, just a question there.
Do any other commissioners have any thoughts about Graham's comments? Gary?
I do. I think to avoid some unintended ambiguity, it might be good to use the term character defining in both locations.
I agree, Gary. What do you think, Graham?
Yeah, I agree too. I think that's when we're talking and reviewing, again, that character defining, I think, is a common descriptor that we all use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels correct to me as well.
Well, and I just listened to it, but at the top of this, at the beginning, and I think Kara might have sent this out to all of us also, in the descriptor, there's this paragraph which says, which tells you about the difference between character and character defining. Sorry, I just lost it. It's at the top of the sheet.
I think I just pulled it up. I'm hoping, Anne, that I pulled up the right thing.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Right, it's at the top of page 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm a little curious about is, and maybe Graham, you have the answer to this, aren't there 2 different categories?
Well, and I think that's a good question, because I know one of the distinctions here, and I remember talking again when we went through this the first time, is that there are what we would, I guess, consider a historic character defining window, but a number of those I know have been replaced, but are still windows which are in character with the district, right? And that was a distinction that I know staff was really careful and thorough about, and so that was where I guess my question was also one of clarification. If we're certainly working to preserve historic fabric, but at the same time working to remain in a specific character, which is more generally defined for the district or the neighborhood.
Brittany, you had a question, you had a comment?
So the guideline, Kara read it as retain, but it says repair character windows. So could you pop the guideline back up, Kara? And maybe you could do not the red line draft, but the final draft.
So here we are.
Yeah, it says repair.
So I don't know, like from my perspective, this was an entirely new guideline we wrote. I think the point was that when windows are repairable, that they should be repaired, and it didn't necessarily mean just character defining feature windows, but perhaps I'm misinterpreting that based on the definitions we also provided.
And the term character window appears twice, once in subparagraph B and once in subparagraph C. And I think there's a distinction between what each of those 2 subparagraphs are requiring. And I think that in paragraph B, the term character defining window features is appropriate. Whereas in subparagraph C, the term character windows is appropriate. So maybe what we're saying is that because of the preamble that Anne pointed out, and that there's a distinction between considering something a character window and something a character defining window, I think in this particular article, we may want to use character defining in subparagraph B, but leave the terminology in paragraph C. Does that seem to make sense?
I don't want it to be too, and this is maybe should we just lose character window and it's just all character defining? If we're having trouble parsing it, is it going to be too confusing in the future? And should it just be character defining windows? I know we talked in community meetings about character windows, but I think that the nuance between that and that maybe for clarity's sake, it is just character defining windows. There are a few character defining windows in the district.
So you're suggesting to delete subparagraph C entirety? Is that what you're suggesting or not?
No, I'm suggesting that instead of using character windows and character defining windows, for clarity in the future, just use the term character defining windows for all of these terminology throughout. If we think that might help with the, if we're getting confused, I think clarity is better. And so it could be that in the section that's shown now here, where it says throughout the district, many of the windows have been altered or changed. However, there are a few character defining windows and remove character windows. If you think that would help with the clarity.
I think so. What do the commissioners think? And George, did I see you raise your hand?
Can I just clarify, you guys haven't gone into deliberation yet, you're still in questions. So when you're ready to close the public hearing, do so and then and then start deliberating.
Okay, that's good. I guess at this point, we're still chatting with staff then.
Well, so maybe the question to staff before we transition is whether moving to the single description as you described, Kara, would impact in a negative way the analysis of these different types of windows that staff did while you were working on these customized guidelines. Because I do agree, I think the clarity is helpful, and it just kind of takes that more consistent approach with the preservation vernacular.
Yeah. I mean, I think we used, and Abby or Brittany could interject. I think we used character windows a lot when we were discussing it with the community. That these were character windows. These were, typically original windows. But our design guidelines typically refer to them as character defining, windows features. And so I think that it was trying to, meld the community and our existing design guidelines. Because when we didn't have to change our design guidelines, we didn't. And I think that perhaps for clarity purposes, removing character windows would be helpful. But Abby or Brittany could join in if they feel like they want to add to that.
Does making a reference to facade windows help at all? Because at least in that area, that's where, side views of the houses aren't really as dominant as just what's facing the street. Can you say a character window is any window in a contributing house, but a character defining window faces the facade or faces the main street?
Yeah, we lost part of that. Carrie, did you get that?
I think I got enough of it. I don't know if that adds more I understand what you're saying, and I can understand that, but I wonder if that adds more confusion to it. And just that it, for clarity's sake, maybe character defining windows is the appropriate way to go instead of character windows. If people feel that that's a confusing thing.
Brittany, I see you turned your video on. Did you want to say something?
Well, character windows can be found on all elevations, so I don't think adding that is helpful because the community expressed preservation of these windows where they exist, particularly like if they were visible at all from any elevation. So I think from my perspective, we use character window with the community, but when I wasn't at the last meeting, but when I listened to the commission's discussion on this, it was recommended that that be changed entirely to character defining feature. So I feel like for simplicity's sake, C just needs to be modified to character defining feature.
Okay. All right. Do the commissioners have any other comments, any other questions that they'd like to chat with staff about before we deliberate?
You
And
do have
so-
one person who has their hand raised now from the public. I don't know if that window has passed.
Well, has it? Since I mean, I would like to hear from the person if that's possible.
I don't think you've closed the public hearing yet, so.
We haven't closed the public hearing, so
Oh,
it's-
Kara has
Yeah,
comment.
yeah, I was gonna say before you
Kara
bring
does
in, because I'm guessing it's Shannon. I did want to say that 2.6, the main line says character defining windows, and then both B and C use character windows. So if you wanted to insert defining, it would be under 2.6B and 2.6C, just in terms of motions for anyone if that ends up coming through in your deliberation, that it would be B and C to make sure that there's consistency.
Okay, Kara, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So to be clear, the commissioners don't have any other questions for staff? Then I would like to, it looks like, no, they don't. Thank you, staff, very much. Very nice job. I really appreciate you guys. Jen, can we hear from the person from the public?
Yeah, absolutely, Shannon. You can unmute yourself. And I've got a timer for 3 minutes.
All right.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Great. So I just wanted to, I've been listening to the conversations and the questions, and I did hear that you did get our letter of support for the custom design guidelines for La Alma Lincoln Park, and Historic Denver being a partner organization with the community members and consultant through the whole process have been at every single community meeting, as well as the community meetings for the custom design guidelines. And so we did hear from the community very, very early on the need for flexibility within the custom design guidelines, and that was the instigator for creating this. But I just wanted to, in terms of the conversation between character and character defining, if you change it, just wanted to kind of clarify whatever is the least confusing and also the most flexibility, because the flexibility is key here that the community really wanted to see. And that flexibility being, you know, not just materials, but also I know that there was the definition between character versus character defining being on the front facade or all the facades. So really just instilling the community's input of needing and wanting flexibility for all things considered when it comes to these custom design guidelines. So really trying to determine which wording you choose being more flexible and least confusing moving forward.
All right, Shannon, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Jen, is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I don't see any other hands raised.
No other hands raised. All right. Then seeing no other questions from the commissioners to the staff and no more comments from the public, I'm going to close the public hearing and begin deliberation on what's before us. Commissioners, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's not all talk at the same time.
Well, driving the area with a copy of the revised guidelines to me seemed to make perfect sense. I couldn't find anything to argue with. And it's already, you know, a nicely morphing area. And flexibility, absolutely. These are small houses, and perhaps an artist community, maybe not big budget things. If I had any one issue, I would like to say, if there's stained glass there, keep stained glass in it. But other than that, we had a good time driving through the area. It's the first time I really looked closely at it. And I think these suit the kinds of houses that are there.
George, thank you. Graham, did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I'll chime in with George. I think based on Shannon's comments and staff's clarifications that, and thank you for pointing out on page 2, the paragraph which says character windows are typically originally leaded glass or multi-pane windows. I don't think that we would be limiting that flexibility, which is one of the goals, by having these different components reference those character defining windows. That speaks to George, your comment in preserving that stained and leaded glass. But I think that this would be then specific to those character defining windows, and hopefully not limiting in that flexibility for neighbors and residents to be able to replace windows which have otherwise previously been replaced or altered. So I'm in favor of the character defining singular language for clarity's sake, if others feel similarly.
Okay, great, Graham, thank you. Anne, Gary, Aaron?
I would agree with using character defining also, because it's not just something we in Denver use, but it's a nationally recognized and term that's very common in preservation that I think offers the most clarity.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Aaron. Thank you. Gary, Ann? Nothing?
I'm gonna Jennifer, is that volume a little better? I saw your note there. Sorry if I was.
Yes, thank you.
Somehow the microphone got turned down.
Poor Graham, we're always picking on him.
I'm always speaking quietly. Sorry about that.
Which is generally a good quality, right?
Depends, yeah.
All right, any other comments, commissioners? Hearing no other comments, do I hear a motion from the floor?
Madam Chair, I can make the motion, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it. So
Okay.
the suggested motion has 3 conditions. And we would be adding a 4th condition, correct, to eliminate the term, oops, now I've lost the term, to eliminate the term
Character window.
character window. But am I correct that Kara had yet another condition that she talked about during?
I was just gonna say, like, if you want, depending on how you want to phrase it, you could be like, replace character window with character defining window. That could be it, or you could be specific to that guideline of 2.6 B and C. Insert defining for character, or change character window to character defining. It depends on kind of how you guys want to structure your motion.
Okay.
And
I think that
sorry,
Go ahead, Jen.
I would advise being more general. So saying that you replace the word instead of, in case there was another area that we missed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that.
If that's the case, I can make the motion because I can see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so sorry, can I ask, I'm sorry, to make it even more complicated, can you say replace or remove character window with character defining? Because there is a place where they're right next to each other, so that we could just swipe it out. So we don't have character defining window twice in a row.
No, it's good to get this up front. Thank you, Kara.
Okay.
And
Bye.
yes, go for it.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the La Alma Lincoln Park customized design. I would think guidelines per section 30-6(2) and 30-30 of the Denver Revised Municipal Code, presented testimonies, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. Guideline 2, okay. I'm just going to read this as it's written, although I'm not quite sure. How to use, condition 1, how to use customized design guidelines, remove 4 in the first sentence of the second paragraph and the extra space in the second sentence. 2, guideline 2.4C, replace ones with materials. 3, guideline 2.15, remove 4.6A. 4, guideline 4.6A, remove genuine. And 5, remove or replace the term character windows with character defining windows.
I will-
And thank you. Graham, did you second it?
I did.
Okay, Graham seconded the motion. All right, we will take a roll call vote then. George,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
and Julie votes aye as well. So the motion carries. I would like to thank the staff and the community members that worked on this. You did such a great job. It was a gargantuan task and you just did a really, really amazing job. And so I really want to congratulate you. Well done. All right, commissioners, we are on to design review now. And first up, let me tell you a little bit about the design review process. I will announce the items on the agenda in order of their address. Commission members, please be sure to let me know if there are any conflicts of interest. I'll introduce the staff. The staff will talk about the application and their recommendation. Commissioners have a chance to question the staff. Then the applicant has 10 minutes to make their case about their project. And then after the applicant speaks, the public has the opportunity to comment, and everyone who wishes to comment has 2 minutes per person. And if you are here to speak regarding a specific project and you're not part of that applicant team, you can click on the little hand raise function that Zoom provides, or if you're on the call, email landmark@denvergov.org prior to the public comment period. Then the staff will have a chance to clarify, the commission will deliberate, and then the commission will vote. So first is Abby Christman with 2021-COA-150, 3248 Champa Street. Abby, take it away.
Hello. So here we have a design detail review for 3248 Champa Street. So in April 2021, the commission approved the design details for the building with the condition that the main entry, that's the inset glass entry there on the end, be returned to the previously approved configuration, and that the glass on all the storefront windows be transparent per guideline 4.8F. So since that meeting, the applicant has been working with staff through several different revisions, exploring various window options. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on those so that you understand how they got to what they're presenting today. So you kind of understand the in-between from the last meeting to what you're seeing today. So the applicant has a lot of challenging requirements because this is intended to be an urgent care facility. And so they have a lot of privacy requirements. And so trying to come up with a way to have windows, but kind of not have big windows into the space. And so they had previously proposed to staff to construct several shear walls behind several of the window openings that would basically create false windows. And that's what you see there on the corner, that those would have had walls behind them rather than being true windows. They were also proposing to have the windows have integral blinds. So they would have had interior blinds in the windows. So staff did not find either of these options to be compatible with the district character. There were also zoning issues with transparency with these options. So staff encouraged the reconfiguration of the interior spaces so that the rooms requiring privacy could be placed at the rear of the building, and that other functions could be moved to the street facing facades where privacy was not as much of a concern. So that's the design that you're seeing today, as having accommodated those changes. And so I'm now going to run through what is different about what you're reviewing today than what you reviewed previously. So first off, the change to the floor plan. So Previously, a lot of the patient rooms were on the street facing facades, and those have now been moved to the back so that there's not as much of the privacy concern, being able to flip around some of those functions. So the design of the primary entrance has also been modified. So it was returned to the overall configuration that the commission previously requested. So the glass walls are all as in the configuration that the commission requested. However, the location of the primary door has been moved. So previously, the door was on the east elevation. So the door was located so that it would face the street. The door has now been moved to the south elevation, so it no longer faces the street. So having a primary entrance door that does not face the street is atypical for commercial buildings in a historic district, though the larger glass entry area will still face the street. And probably since it's all glass, pretty, have to look fairly closely to see that that door has been moved. But I wanted to call that out to make you aware of that. So then the other significant alteration has been changes to the width of the windows. So you see there the previous design and the current. So the windows on the storefront of the two street facing facades previously ranged in width from 11'4" to 12'8", and those windows have been reduced in width, so they now range from 7'4" to 8'8". Then the other change has been the door location. So the other entry door has been moved. So it used to be the second bay closest to the corner. It's now been moved further away from the corner. And the width of that entrance opening has also been reduced. Then finally, you can see here that with the shift of the interior spaces, the windows have been removed from the rear. So now there's simply a door on the rear. There are no windows, and this is to accommodate the spaces that need privacy that have been moved to the rear of the building. So here's final just overview of the proposed. So staff find that overall the changes made have successfully balanced the requirements of landmark with the need for privacy due to the building's proposed medical use. Staff does recommend approval with the condition that additional detailing be added where the size of the windows and entrance opening have been reduced. Staff recommends recessing the brick around the opening or adding other detailing to help retain the storefront window rhythm that was there previously, and to more give the impression of larger window openings and to help the smaller window openings look more intentional. That's it.
Abby, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Abby? Anne.
Hi, Abby. I have a question. How do you determine what is the primary entrance?
I was using that based on that is what the applicant labels as their primary entrance. As far as so the applicant, the glass inset entry there is what the applicant has determined being their primary entrance.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Abby? All right, Jen, is our applicant lined up to speak?
Yep, looks like they are joining in.
Great. Is that Justin?
That is me.
Hi, Justin. Hey, you've
Hello.
got 10 minutes to make your presentation, and please make sure that you cover all the points that you really want to cover in those 10 minutes, because we won't be able to come back to you after we go into deliberation.
Okay, sure thing.
Oh, and start with your name and your full address too, please.
Sure. My name is Justin Repath. Work for Cushing Carroll, located at 303 East 17th Avenue, number 105.
Great.
And yeah, so just some points that kind of help us get the context of the building. This is a 3,600 square foot urgent care facility located on the intersection of Downing Street, MLK Boulevard, and Champa Street, as you all know. There is a public entry door located on MLK Boulevard, and this ties to our last question. And the main and patient entry is located off of Downing, basically connected to the parking lot, and that is for easy patient access. There's also an ambulance entry door off of that parking lot. So that was the main driver for calling that the primary entrance, is basically from the parking lot. It's very accessible to get into the building. Some of the architectural features include dynamic brick detailing with alternating coursing, brick pilasters, brick cornices. The pilasters feature an integrated lighting, and it's recessed into the wall construction, as well as precast accent elements in the lower portion of the pilasters. And also the building features a low profile that incorporates a rhythm of fenestration along the building, and the non-street facing side of the building at the parking lot side incorporates stucco walls. And as Abby mentioned, no windows are provided at this wall, as that's where the exam rooms have been relocated. Materiality of the building is assigned with the intention of making the building compatible with the surrounding architectures. Other attributes we include to keep compatibility would be the roof construction. It's parapet roof, and that's where a majority of the buildings are, a majority of the buildings are constructed. Our pronounced cornices, as you all have seen in the history of this building, as well as building heights and widths. And Abby very clearly lined out some changes we made to the design of the building, and those mainly address building transparency. The interior layout has been revised so that interior program is accommodated and all windows are fully transparent without any walls behind them. And one reason for the narrower windows is we are incorporating shear in that interstitial space between the windows. So that just makes that work better. I do hear the Commission's suggestions for making that look more intentional, and we can definitely explore ways to do that. And I think that is a very achievable thing. And yeah, so shear walls have been completely removed where they are previously behind windows. And that is basically the overview of what I have there. And I think we've brought this pretty far ahead with the help of the Landmark Planning Commission, and we really do appreciate that. I thank you for letting me bring these things up, and am open for questions at this time.
Sorry about that. I was muted and couldn't find the, yeah, whatever. Anyway, Justin, thank you very much. Very much appreciate your presentation. Commissioners, have you any questions for the applicant? Seeing a lot of shaking heads. No questions for the applicant? All right. It looks like you're off the hook, Justin. No questions for you. Are there anyone from the public that would like to comment?
Yep, Keith Pryor has his hand raised. So
Excellent.
Keith, you're welcome to unmute whenever you're ready.
Keith, you know the routine.
Hey.
Your name.
Yeah. Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Chair of the Design Review Committee for Curtis Park Neighbors. Definitely appreciate staff's work on this and trying to get this project moving forward. We definitely still have major concerns about the windows and how windows are critical. It's our key defining feature in Curtis Park, as it's outlined in our design guidelines and our opening statement in our design guidelines that are integral to Curtis Park, just as you've approved La Alma's in your public hearing. And so these windows do not match the storefront rhythm of what we had. The previous larger windows do mimic that of a lot of the more historic storefronts that we do have, and Curtis Park was a mixed use district that did have a lot of commercial storefronts within it. And so there are great examples that can be drawn upon, and what is currently being proposed is not proportionally correct for the district, and it does need to have those larger openings. The door being changed on the main entrance is a bit of a concern. Again, most doors do enter and face the street itself. It just lends itself to more user-friendly ease, but that's not as much of a concern as we have with how the windows read. And it is about transparency. It is about proportionality. It's not about dressings and trying to make the dressings and the brick make the windows look appropriate. The windows need to look appropriate, and these do not. So we do encourage the commission to deny this or approve it with the condition that the windows be restored to a larger, more appropriate format of what is found in the historic district. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Jen, do we have anyone else from the public that would like to talk to us?
I don't see any other hands raised, no.
All right, okay. Staff, do you have any clarifications, or commission, do you have any last minute questions for staff? All righty then, I don't see any questions for staff. Thank you, Abby, thank you very much. Then commission, let's go into deliberation. Who wants to start? What are your thoughts? It's a talkative bunch today. Graham?
Yeah, that mute unmute's a good signifier, isn't it?
That's my clue.
Well, I'll say, I guess, to the windows, because that was what, also jumped out at me. That was, I think, one of the more dramatic changes here. It did catch me a little bit off guard, just because we've seen this project several times, but had not seen that as an adjustment up to this point. It seems that we introduced something new here, or have the last several times that this has come through. And I know that the project team has been very patient in working through all these details with us. And so I do think that staff's recommendation to help balance that with a little bit of detailing in the masonry helps to make it intentional, and speaks to that, guideline 4.8. The windows and doors in that proportion may not be as consistent with the historic width, but the brick detailing is certainly an element that does tie to some of the character of the district. And so I do appreciate that as a suggestion, I think. But I'm curious to hear other commissioners' thoughts as well, because my gut also told me that, a clear span there is a more traditional historic detail.
Yeah, I agree, Graham. Anne or Gary?
Well, I understand what Keith is saying, but I also understand the challenges that the applicant is facing. And for example, if we did insist on making the windows go from pilaster to pilaster, there would be larger portions of the windows that would be obscured by the interior partitions. Because if you look at the floor plan, in order to get the plan arrangement, they do have to do little dog legs to kind of make the rooms behind the windows bigger than the windows. So, I mean, if we were insisting on larger windows, more of those windows would be obscured by a partition on the inside. And so there, there's a kind of an inherent challenge here, is that the function and use of the building don't necessarily, isn't necessarily compatible with a building that has traditional storefronts on two adjacent sides. And so it's a challenge. It's a big challenge. And I'm inclined to accept the proposal as presented, as opposed to insisting on larger windows with even more of those windows kind of covered up on the inside by the interior framing. It's a compromise, but given the journey that this building has gone through. I really do appreciate that the parapet is the same height on both primary facades, which is an improvement from previous iterations. I think the brick detailing is rather nice. I'm not at all concerned about the primary entrance being kind of tucked around the corner. I think the opening in the wall says this is where you go in the building. And I understand the need to have an entrance there that's adjacent to the parking lot because of accessibility requirements and so forth. So I'm inclined to support this proposal consistent with the staff's recommendation, but let's talk about it some more if there are other people who think that the windows are really a problem.
Okay, Gary. Thank you, Gary. Anne?
I agree with Gary. I'm inclined to also to support this this version of it. And I look at sheet 10, and there's a little image number 9 shows a commercial building that has very strong horizontal detailing. And when I look at these windows, I think a really great a strong soldier course underneath those windows going all the way across, because there's lots of horizontal banding up above in the detailing, could go a long way to making this look very intentional. Instead of right now, it sort of looks like it's just cut into the brick. So I think that I agree with the staff. I think there definitely are ways of detailing this that wouldn't require changing the size of the windows, but would just make it look more intentional. But I do want to go back to the discussion about the entrance, because I think there's the entrance people use because they're in the parking lot, but there are people driving by the building who see a door on the north side and assume, I mean, I would, that that's the main entrance to the building. And there's nothing in the plan actually that explained what is the front. Previously, there was sort of a reception area. But the reason I'm less worried about it is because honestly, I think that unless you're using this building, you will assume that the north entrance is the entrance to the building. So I agree with the staff, and I would support this proposal.
Excellent. Thank you, Anne. George, Aaron, did either one of you want to make any comments?
I had a thought here. First of all, the window sizing, I think, is probably related to the rearrangement of the floor plan to give more privacy and the right size rooms for patient care. In order to accommodate that, they probably needed some additional wall space made available by a smaller window. If that was the same thing Gary was saying, yeah, the form is following the function here, and I think it's done so quite well. As to the door location, I don't know about anybody else, but I wouldn't want to be sitting in an open area and have people rushing through with gurneys and patients bleeding all over the place in the same spot. They need to have an entrance that's wide enough for a gurney that an ambulance can back up to and all that, but you still have probably the greatest amount of traffic is going to be people walking around, and they'll be in that open area. I think having the entrances the way they are in the revised plan makes perfect sense. So rather than, again, the form following the function, if it's going to be a urgent care place, which is a very good thing, then I can support this plan wholeheartedly.
Okay, great. George, Aaron, did you want to make any comments?
I have nothing additional that's not been said.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. Sounds like everybody's in agreement. I agree with you all as well in supporting staff's recommendations. Adam, did you want something? Did you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to remind the commission that design review is not a compromise. It's applying the specific design guidelines to the application at hand. And in this case, staff has pointed out 1, 2, 3 guidelines where they feel the guidelines are not being met. And so I'm not sure if this is where the discussion is going, but if the discussion is that this is an application that can be approved as presented with no conditions. There probably want to be some deliberation on how guidelines 4.2, 4.3, and 4.8 are being met or are meeting the intent statements.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Well, it sounded to me as if we were headed toward a conditional approval. Is that correct, Commission?
I think the condition that Adam referenced would be staff's recommendation for the brick detailing.
Right.
As Anne mentioned, potentially horizontal or otherwise to help bring the historic context that those guidelines seek to the design as it is, right?
That was
the compromising.
That's what I was thinking. Does the rest of the commission agree with that? Are we comfortable with that?
I think so. Does a plan like this or an elevation like this have to show what kind of signage they're going to have?
No, we're not. We're not quite there yet.
Okay.
All right. Do I hear a motion from the floor, please?
Madam Chair, I will try a motion. I move to conditionally approve application number 2021-COA-150 for the design detail of the proposed infill at 3248 Champa Street as per design guidelines 4.2, 4.3, 4.5, 4.6, 4.8, 4.20, 4.30, 5.8, 5.9, 5.15, 5.17, and 5.21, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions: that additional brick, or following condition, excuse me, that additional brick detailing be added where the size of the windows and entrance have been reduced.
Graham, thank you for making the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Let's take a roll call then. George.
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Gary.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
And Julie also votes aye. So the motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. We are now on to our next on the design review schedule. And this one will be presented by Brittany. It's 2021-COA-402. It's located at 3041 Stout Street in Curtis Park. Brittany, take it away, please.
So this project is for a new single family infill project on the old DHA site. This is at 3041 Stout Street. The commission has reviewed a number of infill projects on this site. If the commission approves this infill project today, there will only be 2 remaining sites on the Stout Street side of the site for infill on the old DHA site on this side of the street. The Champa side of the street is still pretty much wide open, so there are still opportunities there. So whilst the commission was reviewing these projects, an issue came up about the DHA's sewer easement on this side of the property, which creates an unusual circumstances for these infill developments and results in an easement that is needed for that sewer line. So all of the new infill projects on this site are actually being set back 18 feet from the sidewalk to the front facade of the building, although zoning requires a 20-foot setback. The commission has approved all structures on this side of the block to have that 18-foot setback, with most porches encroaching 6 feet into the setback, which you can see here on the proposed site plan. So this project will match the setbacks that have been approved for all the projects on this site so far, creating a consistent setback pattern for the new single family residential structures on this side of the block. This is for just a single family home. There is no accessory structures proposed here for this particular project. Here we have the second floor plan and the roof plan. This will be a simple gable on hip project, similar to several other structures the commission has reviewed and approved for this lot and that are found throughout the Curtis Park Historic District. So the proposal is proposed to be 30 feet, 5 inches and 5 3/32 quarters tall. This will need a administrative adjustment for height and bulk plane, and the applicant is requesting the commission recommend that administrative adjustment to the zoning administrator. Staff does feel that this is within similar ranges for height and bulk plane in the surrounding block and historic context. This will be the tallest structure on the block, but it is only 5 inches and 5 3/4 of an inch above the max height requirement for this district, and is within the ranges for this block, which range from anywhere from 26 feet in height to 29 feet in height. So it is within similar ranges. And then I also have some additional context studies to show how it matches the gable on hip form. In terms of design, it will have a partial width porch, and then it will have an arched window on the ground floor with paired windows above, and then just a single window above the door. The entry door is recessed into the facade, and that gabled portion does project out, minimally similar to several other gable on hips within the district. The rear facade is very simple in design. It has a small bump out that is covered, and then there are 2 entry doors into the structure. One you can see here on the rear elevation, and then on the secondary facade, there's an additional door, which I will show you here in a second. So this is the north elevation of the proposed project. As you can see, it does have windows that are tall and narrow, similar to the Curtis Park Historic District. Towards the rear of the structure, the windows do get a little bit wider in width, but the staff feel that they have minimal impact on the surrounding historic context as they are at the rear and will have minimal visibility from the public right of way. And then this is the south facade, in which you can see that bump out very clearly with that secondary entry door into the project proposal. Again, the windows on this facade are a little bit wider than what you see in Curtis Park, but they are on a secondary facade, and they are adjacent to the DHA infill proposals from the 1940s that were recently redesigned, and construction just finally completed on those, and we feel it will have a minimal impact on the surrounding context. So you can see that gable on hip form that the applicant is proposing here. And here is the proposed streetscape of what Stout Street will look like. As I stated previously, 3041 Stout Street is one of several gable on hip forms that the commission has approved for this site. You can see those proposed infill projects here in this streetscape. Staff did provide these to the applicant, and they did include them as part of their submission. We have the adjacent mansard form that was reviewed and approved by the commission, the 2 gable on hip forms, and the 1 Italianate form, and that will leave 1 remaining site on this side of the block for future development here, and this block will be complete. As I stated previously, this will be the tallest structure on the block, but staff doesn't feel that it is dominating the block or the adjacent properties in any form, and we feel that the bulk plane and height adjustment is so minimal that we are recommending that the commission recommend approval of that administrative adjustment. And we feel that the variety and height of all these structures will provide some visual interest on the block, which is very typical of historic development in Curtis Park, where not everything aligns perfectly. So here is the inspirations and compatibility demonstrations that the applicant has provided. This structure is very similar to both 2858 California Street and 2632 Stout Street, which are both gable on pit forms. Both of these structures have arched windows on the ground floors and then grouped windows above that arched window, with the entry facade recessed a little bit from that projecting gable form. And both of these structures do have partial width porches, although 2858 does somewhat wrap around onto the side elevation there. So staff did feel that the project proposal is compatible with similar structures within the district. And the applicant has documented these structures at 29 feet in height, which was somewhat similar to what the city's height map documented them at, although one of them was documented at 2858 California was documented as 31 feet in height in the city's mapping system, or sorry, 37 feet in height in the city's mapping system. So I'm not entirely clear how tall it is there, but in general, it's within the height ranges that you see within Curtis Park. Here are just some more compatibility demonstrations. There are some architectural elements and details that this structure is pulling from 2529 California Street in terms of the architectural banding that you see proposed on this structure, which the commission will look at further in the phase 2 submittal. But again, just similar compatibility demonstrations with other Queen Anne style forms within the district. So staff are recommending that the commission approve this infill proposal as it will occur on a vacant lot. It will reinforce the 25-foot lot development pattern within Curtis Park, and the overall massing and scale is compatible with what you see within the Curtis Park Historic District. And we are also recommending that the commission recommend approval of the administrative adjustment to the zoning administrator.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Jen, is the applicant ready?
Great, Emily is moving them over.
Okay, great. Is the applicant present?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Chelsea, this is Julie, the chairperson. If you could begin by giving your name and your address, and your presentation is limited to 10 minutes, and please say everything that you wish to say in those 10 minutes, because after the commission begins deliberation, we're not able to talk to you after that. So please begin when you are ready.
Okay, thank you, Julie. My name is Chelsea Hume. I'm the Architecture Project Manager for Habitat for Humanity of Metro Denver. Our address is 3245 Elliott Street, Denver 80211. If you do not know, Habitat for Humanity, we build for sale affordable housing throughout the Metro Denver region, the 5-county region, and we are very excited to be working here with DHA and the Curtis Park RNO to be a part of this historic neighborhood. As you can see, we are proposing a Queen Anne style single family home at 3041 South Street. It draws its design cues from similar surrounding homes, including 2858 California, 2626 Curtis, with the single arched window on the first floor and 2 single hung or double hung windows on the second floor. The porch is set back approximately 2 feet and is partial width porch, which matches some of the surrounding Queen Anne buildings. As mentioned, there will be brick detailing similar to the surrounding Queen Anne homes that will be worked out throughout the design detailing submittal, and the shingling details on the gable roof portion to echo other historic detailing seen in the neighborhood. The house is approximately 1,600 square feet, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1 bath upstairs, 1 bath downstairs. And as mentioned by Brittany, there's a small storage space at the rear to provide our families with a little bit more storage. And then as mentioned by staff, we'll be requesting 2 administrative adjustments, one for violating the height and 1 for violating the bulk plane. The height, Brittany mentioned approximately 5 inches. I realized we actually made a small miscalculation, so that will be a bit larger by about 10 inches. So it will be approximately 16 inches taller than the maximum height. Yeah, I think that's all I have. The height and bulk plane adjustments will help to closely match the other Queen Anne style homes in the neighborhood. As Brittany mentioned, this will be the tallest building on this exact block, but is certainly not outside of the height range for the other Queen Anne style homes. So yeah, I think that's all I have.
Okay, Chelsea, terrific. Thank you very much. Commissioners, have you any questions for the applicant? I see no questions for the applicant. So Chelsea, thank you very much. You are off the hook now. Jen, have we anyone? Yes, you're very welcome. Anyone from the community that would like to speak with us?
Yep, Keith has raised his hand. Keith, you're welcome to
Keith,
unmute.
whenever you're ready.
Great. Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Chair of the Curtis Park Design Review Committee. We've worked with Habitat on this project, and they've been a really pleasure to work with. They definitely understood Curtis Park. They listened to examples that we gave to them, and I think what you have before you is the clear example that shows that they were listening and they understood Curtis Park. We love the arch windows. We love the varied heights. We do support the height variance as well as the bulk plane variance, and those have been previously granted on other properties within this development as well as throughout the Curtis Park area by the commission in the past. And so, yeah, we just feel that this is a really strong design, and you really actually stronger than some of the other designs. And given that this will be the affordable, 2 affordable pieces on the neighborhood, and they will really kind of speak to that they are actually undistinguishable, and probably given that they'll be wrapped fully bricked compared to some of the other structures, will be like, that's an affordable house and that's the Habitat house. I think they did an amazing job, and we fully support this and ask the commission to support it as well. Thank you.
Keith, thank you very much. Jen, is there anybody else lined up to speak?
I don't see any other hands raised, no.
All right. Staff, do you have any other clarifications or any last minute questions from the commission? Okay, I don't see any. All right, Brittany, thank you very much. Let's go into deliberation, commissioners. What are your thoughts? I'm happy to listen. Gary, please.
I have a question for Graham. I mean, I think this is a great proposal. What I'm a little concerned about is the precision of some of the dimensions. And I don't know if it matters or not, but when you have a dimension that's to like the top of the house, 30 feet 5 and 5/32 of an inch, the tolerances in construction are what, plus or minus a half? I'm just wondering if there's some guidance we can give, or maybe it doesn't matter. But if this height exceeded the 5/32 by a 32nd, say, and we approve this as it is the owner in trouble? I'm just wondering, I want to get away from such precise dimensions that really don't matter and are not achievable in standard construction. And I don't know if this is just something we ignore because it doesn't matter, or that at some point in time, because something is a 1/4 inch wider than we thought it was going to be, somebody's going to be in trouble. And so,
Okay,
Graham,
actually, Brittany has her hand up. Brittany, what was your comment? And then we'll let Graham talk.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I know you directed this to Graham, but I just wanted to address how we review the processes. So when this comes in for permitting, oftentimes the measurements don't exactly match the landmark measurements. If they're within inches of each other, I just issue an administrative update to that approval. If they're really off, we do forward those back to you as the commission for review. We do require all infill to be measured per what the zoning code requirements do. So sometimes the measurements do get adjusted because of that requirement from when we first see it to when they start going through permitting, but it's not really a change in the overall massing of it. It's just a change in how they are measuring the structure. So sometimes that happens as well, which can result in slight differentiation in measurements. But again, that's usually just something we administratively update their approval to match their permitting documents on.
Yeah, they missed the height by 10 inches, so yeah.
I'm good with that. I was just, I just thought it was worth talking about so that I'm glad that there's some flexibility because it's very appropriate.
Yeah, no, Gary, I think your comments are fair, and I love a rough framer who can get me within a quarter inch, right? You want things plumb, but overall height, especially sometimes as you get into a more custom design where you're not building with just that one-off stud length or something like that. But the other friendly comment is that we found sometimes even just the tolerance of dimensioning, in drafting program in CAD or Revit, if it's adjusted to an 1/8 or quarter inch, can sometimes still allow things to add up, but minimize the splits. I got mill workshop drawings once with 64ths of an inch on them for cabinetry, which we had a very similar conversation. So, I think it's a good thing to address, but Brittany, appreciate your clarifications there too.
Yeah, thanks. Good discussion. Any other thoughts?
I think it's a very attractive building. I like it a lot.
I do too. And
I think this is a terrific project. I have just one friendly comment to make also, because I know we're in mass form and context, but when it comes, and I think, like I said, I think it's just a great project and really, really well done. I would maybe suggest to the applicant that they reconsider that second horizontal band. And it's the one that comes off of the spring line of the arch. Because while it really makes a great deal of sense on the front, if you look at the side elevations, that band really doesn't have any meaning because it doesn't hit the windows in any particular place. And I think that the historic images that are shown, that are being given, which are great images, it might be worth looking to those to either, I think the one that I said was a 2632 Stout Street. 2632, yeah. They drop off that top band at the arch and then they kind of reset wherever it needs to be. So I would just say that, yeah, you can see that there's no band at the spring line. And I think that gives them a little bit more, it could be that the lower band at those windows is actually the one that's more articulated. And I just say this because I think it's a simple, really elegant solution. And I just hope that in the detailing, they just can follow through. So I think it's well done.
thank you, Anne. I agree. We're coming to, I think we're coming to a conclusion at this point. Do I hear a motion from the floor? I'm very shy today.
Madam Chair, I can make a motion.
Sure, please. Thank you, Graham.
Yep, you bet. Motion for approval. I move to approve application number 2021-COA-403 for the, sorry, I'm scrolling back and forth here. I got to resize this. Mass form and context of the proposed infill structure at 3041 Stout Street. Goodness, sorry, I zoomed away and looking at plans. Now I got to zoom back out. And this is at 2021-402. I was a staff reporter.
Okay, thank you, Graham.
The phase one mass form and context at 3041 Stout Street as per design guidelines 4.1 through 4.5, 4.7 through 4.8, and 4.15, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report. In addition, I move to recommend an administrative adjustment for the height and bulk plane per section 12.4.5.3 of the Denver zoning code. And I apologize, that was backwards and upside down because I was moving between them, but I think I got everything in there.
All right, Graham, thank you very much. Do I hear a second to the motion? Oh, I think George got that one, Gary. Sorry about that. All right, let's take a vote, shall we? George,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
and Julie. I also vote aye as well. So congratulations. The motion is approved. And we are on to our next design review project. And Crystal is our staff person. Thank you, Brittany. Crystal's our staff person for 2021-COA-403 3054 Champa Street. Crystal, take it away.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Let me
you.
just move this forward a little bit. Okay, so here we are for 3054 Champa Street. The applicant is proposing to construct a new infill single-family residence on an existing vacant lot in the Curtis Park G Historic District. This is the same applicant as Brittany's just now, so it's also part of that DHA redevelopment of Platte Valley Homes. So on the left side, you can see that the site is outlined in red on the left and is facing Curtis Park. So development along this block of Champa Street will have a consistent setback of 20 feet, though it's not shown on the ground plan here. However, looking at both 3056 and 3052 Champa Street, which are both approved designs on either side of this structure, they also have that 20-foot setback as well that's already been approved by the commission. So here you can see the streetscape and compatibility demonstrations. At the bottom of the screen is the streetscape comparison showing the two already approved structures that'll be on either side of this structure. The new proposed two-story Italianate structure is supposed to be at 24 feet and 7 3/8 inches tall and is of a height that's consistent with other houses on this block and of this style in the district. So you can see the two on each side will be a bit taller, but it'll add some differentiation to this block with this new Italianate style. Above, you can see some of the compatibility demonstrations showing other Italianate structures in the district that also have full width porches and are of a similar height and size as the proposed structure. So here you can see the site plan as well as just some lot photos showing the vacant land where this will be. As you can see on the site plan here, there is that 20-foot setback that matches the adjacent properties that have been approved. Additionally, I just wanted to point out staff erroneously mentioned a garage in the staff report. However, there is no garage being proposed with this application. It's just the single family structure. So here's the new infill structure. It utilizes the historic Italianate kind of style. It matches window patterns that are common to the district and has 1/1 window sizes that are found on other Italianate structures in the district. It also has a hipped roof form that's also common to structures of this style in the district. There will be headers and sills on all the windows on the structure. And the new structure will have simplified brackets at the cornice, as well as simple porch detailing to differentiate it as new construction. The applicant is also requesting administrative adjustment for the bulk plane under Denver Zoning Code Section 12475C to allow the primary structure to encroach into that bulk plane for the Italianate style with the boxy massing. Staff is supportive of the administrative adjustment to the bulk plane as the adjustment will accommodate the style of the structure, which fits the character of the Curtis Park Historic District. And then here, so you can see that front facade on the left, and on the right, you can see the very simple rear facade. And then here are the side elevations. Again, pretty simple. The structure will have brick cladding all around, as well as those headers and sills. And you can see the windows there. It looks like some of them are a little bit wider than the ones at the front. However, these will be on side elevations. So they seem appropriate for the district. And then here's the isometric views of the proposed structure. The applicant, I noticed, didn't detail these with the brackets or the porch detailing, so that was just an issue, but it is actually what's on the elevations, not the isometrics, just to be clear. So the proposed infill structure's overall mass, width, and hipped roof 2-story Italianate design is characteristic of the district and matches historic proportions. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the application as well as approval of the administrative adjustment.
Crystal, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Crystal? No, it doesn't look like it. Well done, Crystal. Jen, do we have the applicant ready to speak with us?
Same applicant, so Emily is moving Chelsea back over.
Okay, great.
Hello again.
Hi, Chelsea. You know the routine at this point.
Yeah, so do you want me to go through the first spiel that I did before about habitat and everything? Yes.
Oh, well, no, you don't need to do that. We do need your name and address, though.
Okay. Chelsea Hume, Habitat for Humanity of Metro Denver, 3245 Elliott Street.
Thank you.
So at 3054 Champa, we are proposing an Italianate style single family home. It draws design cues from similar surrounding homes, including 2647 Champa, 2617 Champa. We have equally spaced windows and doors on the first and second floors and a full length hip roof on the porch to echo the design of other homes of this style in the neighborhood. And then a full hip roof that is also quite common in the neighborhood. Again, it's approximately 1,600 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs with a small storage space at the rear. And then as mentioned by staff, we'll be requesting an administrative adjustment for violating the bulk plane by approximately 3 foot 6 inches in order to meet that boxy Italianate form. And I think that is all I have.
Chelsea, great. Let's see if the commissioners have any questions for you. Commissioners? Nope, not a one, Chelsea. Well done. You're off the hook. Jennifer, any community members would like to speak to us about this project?
Why, yes, Keith has raised his hand.
Hi, Keith.
Hello. So yes, Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Chair of the Curtis Park Design Review Committee. Again, another stellar project. They listened very well. They definitely took cues from the neighborhood. We really like the hip roof on this. It's rare that we actually get an Italianate with a hip roof on new construction. Most of them are flat roof and have a rooftop deck. So it is really nice to incorporate that hip roof and draw in that design detail, which is very common in the Curtis Park Historic District. So the brackets we feel are very simplified, but yet do pay homage to the brackets that are found typical to the Italianate and the porch as well. We just feel like this is an overall, again, really strong design that really fits well within the district and shows of its time, but yet really, really works with the district. And we are supportive of the bulk plane administrative adjustment and encourages the commission to support this overall design and the administrative request. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Jennifer, anybody else?
Nope, no one's got their hand up.
Okay, great. Crystal, did you want to say anything else to the staff? Any of the clarifications?
No, just that, like I said, it's the elevations that are correct, not these isometric.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. Commissioners, any questions for Crystal? Because I'm tight, Anne. You're welcome. All righty, then let's go into deliberation. Seeing no questions for staff, let's go into deliberation. Commissioners, what do people think about this? George?
I like the last one. This is a habitat house.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking.
It's really nice. I built as shown. It would be great. So I don't have any questions.
Okay, great. Erin, did you have any comments?
No, I don't. I agree. It's excellent design and I look forward to seeing it.
All right. Graham?
I'll agree. I think it's
All right.
a great project.
Okay, excellent. I agree with y'all. Brittany, oh, you're up for the next one. Never mind. Okay. Alrighty. Do I hear a motion from the floor?
I'll do that.
Great, George. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval and an administrative adjustment. I move to approve the application 2021-COA-403 for the mass form and context of the proposed infrastructure at 3054 Champa Street. As per the presented testimony, submitted documentation, guidelines 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.7, 4.8, the Curtis Park character defining features, and recommend to the zoning administrator approval of an administrative adjustment for the bulk plane encroachments on the zone lot per section 12.4.5.3 of the Denver zoning code, presented testimony and submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report.
George, thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Gary seconded. Thank you, Gary. Let's take a vote. George.
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Gary.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
And Julie also votes aye. So congratulations to Chelsea. Now we are on to our next project in the design review. And that is Brittany. And it is 2021-COA-397 at 405 Emerson Street. Take it away, Brittany.
So our next project is for a 12-panel solar panel array on 405 Emerson Street, which is a contributing structure in the Alamo Placita Historic District. It was constructed in 1906, and the period of significance is 1889 to 1942. This property is located on a corner, which you can see here in this aerial image of the structure. And then this is the street frontage along Emerson Street. So the applicant is proposing a 10-panel array on the south roof slope, and then 2 additional panels will be located on the north roof slope. The panels on the north roof slope are set back in the rear 2/3. However, the panels that are proposed on the south roof slope are not in the rear 2/3. So here you can see the proposed panel array. So 5 of the panels are forward of the rear 2/3. It is located on the upper slope of this Dutch gambrel and not the lower slope. So it will have minimal visibility from the public right away, but it's not meeting our guideline requirement of mounting panels in the rear 2/3. Panels are located on the primary structure. The applicant does have a secondary structure on the site, and in the future, they would like to propose panels on that secondary structure as well to fully support the energy needs of both the secondary and primary structure. However, the panels that are proposed today are solely for the primary structure at this time, and the applicant chooses not to place them on the secondary structure at this time to support the primary structure, because it would require connecting the mechanical equipment and creating a trench across the yard to connect the primary structure and secondary structure electrical grid. So that's why all the panels are located on the primary structure. The panels are located below the ridgeline per guidelines and will be mounted below the dormer ridgeline as well on the north elevation. Again, generally speaking, these solar panels do meet our design standards and guidelines as they are flat mounted. However, there are 5 of them that are located in the front 1/3 of the roof, which is not currently supported by our current design standards and guidelines. So staff is recommending conditional approval of that proposed arrangement as it is not meeting our guidelines. But here you can see the south roof slope. And again, this is a Dutch gambrel roof, and the panels will be located on that upper roof slope. So they will have minimal visibility from the public right away, but still not meeting that rear 2/3 requirement that we have. So conditional approval with the condition that all panels be located in the rear 2/3.
Okay, Brittany, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Brittany? Does not look like it. Okay. Jen, do we have the applicant present?
Yes, I'm going to switch over because he's got a presentation as well.
Okay, great.
He has moved over.
Thank you, Emily.
Great. And I will, you just tell me when to move the slides, but you're welcome to unmute whenever you're ready, and let me set the timer. Has he been moved over?
Is the applicant there?
He hasn't been moved over. It was the wrong one.
Okay.
I've got him.
Okay.
All right, Zach, sorry about that.
No, yeah, sorry about that.
No, this thing is so touchy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Zach.
Hi.
This is Julie. I'm the chairperson. If you've got 10 minutes to make your presentation, and at the beginning, if you could please give your full name and address, that would be great. And make sure that you please cover everything you want to cover in your first 10 or in your 10 minutes, because once we're in deliberation, we're not able to talk with you again. So just begin at any point you wish. Zach, did we lose you?
Uh-oh.
I see his name. I don't see him.
Looks like he's frozen on my computer.
Me too.
Shoot. Zach, if you can hear us, it might be easiest if you went off and came back again.
And that looks like what they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's left.
Just think how good we're going to be at technology when all this is over.
Will it ever be? Sorry, I'm a pessimist right now.
I hear you. I know.
Yeah, you're in good company, Jen. Zach, are you there?
I don't see him yet. Nope. And I'm looking to see if he's joined as an attendee and we can move him over, but hasn't yet.
Okay. Darn it. Things were moving so smoothly too.
Jen, if you joined by phone, the last four are 3306.
Thank you.
And Jen, as a reminder, I need to leave at 2:50. I'm going to try and stay to finish this one, but.
Understood. No, I know it's, you only have a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just do what you need to do, Erin.
Okay, thanks.
Apparently the computer got unplugged, so he is working on getting back into the meeting.
Well, maybe he's got a kitty trying to get on the keyboard like I have.
Erica Warzel is going to be joining around 3 o'clock, just as an FYI, so that we have close to 6 at all times.
There, he looks like he's connecting. Yay.
Hello, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I will try to rip through the presentation now. I lost some time. Sorry about that. My computer was accidentally deleted or unplugged. Okay. So my name is Zach Lewis and I live at 405 North Emerson Street. Well, we moved in at the end of March, and so we're really excited to put in solar panels right when we moved in to get the full life of it and kind of add to the sustainability of our home. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so I'll kind of gloss over this. I mean, I think we all know the news has been all bad. The wildfires in California, the record-breaking wildfires in Colorado last year. There was the recent report by the IPCC. It's now unequivocal that humans are causing climate change. And so with the pandemic in particular, kind of as the backdrop, it is kind of a really wonderful time to make all the efforts we can to address climate change and sustainability, and solar panels are a good tool for that. One example that I came across when I was doing my research on this was there was a guy, and I can't remember his name, but in Washington, D.C., there was a historic district. He challenged the Historic Preservation Commission there. It was originally denied. And then one of his arguments was like, hey, you know, in 100 years, if we don't make this effort now, there might not be a historic district left to save and preserve. And that was one of the things that he brought up. So next slide, please. Yeah, this one is quick. It's just the solar potential, and the state and the city in particular are one of the best in the country. So we get more benefit from almost anywhere else in the entire country. And it's just a wonderful thing that we can pursue and do. Next slide, please. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of, I try to look at this from a top-down perspective. There's the international kind of report suggesting that we need to do more for climate change. President Biden said 100% carbon pollution-free electricity by 2035. Mayor Hancock in 2018 issued a similar goal by 2030 to have 100% electrical energy demands from renewable sources. And I actually, you can't see it here, but I thought it was kind of a very on the nose. I got a flyer from the Alamo Placita Neighbors Association, which is in partnership for Go Green Electric and Solar for an upcoming pancake breakfast. When I reached out to them about this particular case, they were like, hey, we fully support you. We really want you to get solar panels in this neighborhood. So there's just, from all levels, there is widespread support for trying to do this. Next slide, please. This is just a quick, as I said, I did a quick case study of other historic districts around the country, and there are plenty of examples of approvals of the exact same case that I'm bringing to this commission. In Washington, D.C., that was one I referenced earlier. Low profile and colors that are compatible with the roof, or kind of some of the conditions put on. New York City, it was about lower visibility and minimizing visibility along thoroughfares, which our house meets. And you can see the other examples here. Basically, there were a lot of other cities all over the country in totally different regions that all had similar kind of approvals for what we're hoping to do at our home. Next slide, please. So yeah, I mean, for us in particular in this project, so the home, the images that Brittany showed, we have like a light sloped at the top of the roof ridgeline. It faces south and there is absolutely no obstructions, and it's like a perfect vehicle for collecting solar energy. And the alternative design, if we were to have to go to the carriage house, is that it's an east-west orientation. So the efficiency of any solar array would go down, and we'd have to add panels to make up for it. So the cost and expense of the overall system would go up by several $1,000s for the additional panels while having reduced solar energy efficiency. We'd also have to trench across the yard and dig everything up, and I'd have to, yeah. So it would just be a lot of extra work. And we, like, as Brittany mentioned, we also want to eventually put in solar panels on that, which has its, the carriage house has its own panel, which is why we have to trench across the yard. And it would be, yeah, basically it's a perfect vehicle for the solar capture right now. Next slide, please. So you can see here, so I know that the design guidelines are just that you have to have the rear 2/3 of the building is where you're supposed to put the solar panels. But as you can see here, you couldn't even see anything if it was all the way up. There's no visibility from the Emerson Street side. And so I thought it was an interesting case in point. Another kind of a couple examples, I don't have my notes in front of me because now I'm on my phone since my computer was shut down. But I believe I have a neighbor, it's one street over, 436 North Ogden Street. It was a home built in 1990, so I understand it's not a building of interest, but it is smack dab in the middle of the Alamo Placita Historic District. And the solar panels come all the way to the ridge, to the front of the building. And so I thought it was interesting because it's not a building of historic interest, or I can't remember the exact term used, but it is the exact example of what we are hoping to do. There was another example, I believe, at 511 North Lafayette Street. That's in the, I think, the Driver Historic District. It's a different one, but it's another historic district. And I can't remember what year that home was built. I want to say it was 1912. And I believe Brittany mentioned it was approved in 2010. It's the same thing. The solar panels are all the way up to the front, low profile, really clean design. They look really nice. And then there's another one on 635 North William Street, I believe it is. That's another building in 1990. It's not been built yet, but it has been approved. And so I guess when I think about those specific cases, it's like, what is more important? Is it the historic district and the kind of continuity across the historic district, or is it the age of the home itself? We actually have examples of both, and I'm hoping that our house can get an exception based on that. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is one of the pictures that Brittany showed. I mean, this is from the sidewalk. You literally couldn't even see the panels at all as you're walking along the sidewalk on the kind of the north side of 4th Street. And it would just be inconsequential to most people coming by. Next slide, please. This is across the street. So you would see it a little bit, but I think the one thing I want to point out here, the way that I think that's the parapet, the center structure, or the kind of the window with the arch in the middle, that kind of bisects the house. And so if the standard of 2/3 setback is applied, we actually would get like 1/3 of the roof compatibility because of the way that that parapet kind of bisects the structure of the roof. And so it would just reduce it. And honestly, I think it would look weird to have like one part of the roof with solar panels and the other part not. I think from just a design standard, it would look cleaner to have the panels come all the way across the house. Next slide, or is that it? Oh, right. So here is the kind of the proposed solar array. And I understand, I think Sam at Photon Brothers missed the other two on the northern parapet or dormers. I think I'm using the terms wrong. I apologize. But yeah, again, there's not a ton of visibility, and I think it looks cleaner this way because if we do the only on the left side of this image, that's like the back third, and then we just have to do a bunch more work on the other side of the house. I think that might be it. Is there one more slide? And here's an example of the panels that we're going to be using. It's this matte black, really clean, kind of newer type of solar panel that I think will look really nice and hopefully encourage other people in the neighborhood to do it. I did a review of all the homes in the Alamo Placito Historic District and a few others nearby. There are very few homes that have solar panels, and maybe these guidelines are part of the reason why, I don't know, but it would look really nice and hopefully encourage other people to do the same thing. Thank you.
Zach, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Doesn't look like we have any questions for the applicant. Jen, do we have anyone from the public that would like to comment on the project?
I don't see any hands raised. No.
No? Okay, so nobody from the public. All right, Zach, sounds like you're off the hook for speaking right now. Thank you very much. Commissioners, would you like to have any questions with the staff? Brittany, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to provide some clarifications on Zach's testimony.
Sure.
So 436 Ogden Street is within the Alamo Placita Historic District. It is a non-contributing structure built in 1992. We don't have any approvals for those solar panels, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are on there. And then the other address that was mentioned by Zach is 511 Lafayette Street. That is a contributing structure to the Driving Park Historic District, which is adjacent to the Alamo Placita Historic District. Those solar panels were actually approved in 2010 prior to the current design guidelines, but they are located, they're not totally on the rear 2/3 as Zach indicated. And then the last address is 635 Williams Street. And that's the project the commission just recently reviewed, a non-contributing structure where the panels are not totally located within the rear 2/3 as well.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Brittany? Doesn't look like it. Brittany, thank you very much. All right, commissioners, let's go into deliberation now. What do we think? Love to hear your thoughts. Gary, please.
I'm in favor of supporting the staff's recommendation without the condition. Because it's a gambrel style roof and the visibility of the panels from the street is greatly diminished. And I actually think that the symmetry of the proposal is preferred to any kind of installation that would strictly adhere to the standards and be asymmetrical. So I think this is one of those conditions where because of the lack of visibility from the street, we can make an exception to the standards about keeping the panels to the rear 2/3 of the roof. If this was a typical gable roof with high visibility, I think I would have trouble with any solar panels on the roof because of its street exposure on the side. So, the guidelines are great, but I think under some circumstances, they don't fit the unique situation of individual buildings as well. And so I think in this case, I would support a motion that did not have the exception.
Gary, thank you very much. George, I see you nodding. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would absolutely go along with Gary's opinion that in this particular case, there's so little visibility that it seems, very arbitrary in this case to push for a 2/3 rear in the roof. Although I wonder where the 2/3 figure came from. That's something that I certainly intend to take up at the next revision of the guidelines because of actually Zach's point. I would like to have my grandchildren's children actually have a planet to live on. So I will certainly support this application without the condition of moving the panels as they are. It's expensive. You need to get as much kilowatt hours as you possibly can out of the space you've got with a south-facing facade. Go for it, folks. That's at least where I am.
Okay, George, thanks. Anne, did you have any comments?
As with all of these, I'm torn because I could see that also that front array of panels, the 5 panels, instead of being on the south, I'm going to say the southeast, could be on the northwest. And actually that would be more symmetrical with respect to the roof. And there are already 2 other panels on that north facade. And as we've said before, when we have these cases, our purview is the guidelines. Our purview is not the maximum amount of solar collection. And until the guidelines have been corrected, to me, that would be moving those 5 panels to the other side of the roof would be more in keeping with the guidelines. So I support the staff's recommendation.
With the condition?
With the condition.
Okay, all right. Graham.
I was, well, I wouldn't say nervous, but I'm afraid of Groundhog Day or deja vu here, I think, because I know that as a commission, we've encountered this situation a number of times, and just trying to rack my brain on, when and where we have allowed for the exception of the 2/3, 1/3 guideline, which is a clear guideline, as unfortunate as it is, whether or not we agree with it, and I know that's one we've targeted for further discussion, which is not relevant to today's decision. So I don't disagree with Anne that I think the guidelines are very clear about the 1/3, and I know that has been a guiding factor in some of our previous decisions, but I could not remember a project that had such a steep upper pitch of a gambrel roof. I know, very steep Victorian or Queen Anne type roofs where you have a visible, almost vertical plane. I think that is a different situation here. I understand that weighed into staff's analysis too. And so I guess without being resolute either way, I don't disagree that the guidelines are clear, but I also appreciate the interpretation of this and think it is a slightly unique situation with the steeper upper pitch that limits that visibility. So I know that's not helpful in being decisive, but that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. The guidelines are the guidelines, and they may not even service, and I understand what Gary and George are saying for sure. And actually, to my eye, it makes more sense to do it without the staff conditions. But because of the guidelines, and we are looking at them later, we will be looking at this and discussing this. I'm going to have to vote with the staff recommendation with the conditions. And I don't know if we're going to come to a consensus. Sounds like we may not.
I think the comment to that, Julie, also is, in the spirit of looking at the guidelines that, the applicant and any of our other applicants with similar situations would love that help in, embedding that process through updates, which doesn't allow for immediate resolution here, but I think is more black and white in its interpretation that way.
Yeah, Gary.
I find the guideline, and I agree with the need to respect the guideline. But the guideline on solar panels and the 1/3, 2/3 is arbitrary. I think I know the reasoning for it, which applies in front gabled houses, that if the panels aren't on the front third, they are less visible. But you can have cases where the installation of panels on a roof that are completely consistent with the back 2/3 that are visually objectionable. And so, I think in this case, complying with the guidelines, I can understand that. But if when we look at the guidelines relative to solar panels, I'm hoping that there is flexibility, because the 1/3, 2/3 criteria, while it's kind of clear, will in some cases prevent a good installation, and in other cases actually allow a poor installation. And so I hope when we get to consider that guideline in the future, that there's some flexibility built into it that relates to how the installation of the panels actually interfere with the visual integrity of the building. For the sake of moving forward, I'm going to I'll support the staff's recommendation with the exception, but I would recommend that rather than putting a few panels on that southeast corner, perhaps not to put any panels on that southeast corner and wait until the guidelines are revised and then maybe come back. But that again is an owner's choice.
Okay.
I think the other thing that I am concerned about, just generally in solar panels, it's like solar panels have a potential lifespan of about 20 years. Mm-hmm. If the roofing material isn't new, an owner might well be exposed to having to take the panels off to do a re-roofing job sometime before the panel life expires. So I think that's just something to consider, some guidance that to put panels on a roof that needs replacement in a few years is not necessarily a wise choice. I don't know if that's the condition here or not, but it's another consideration when attaching things to the roofs of these buildings.
Sure. Thanks, Gary. So we have a couple of staff people that would like to speak. Brittany and then Jen.
So I just wanted to state on page 41 of the guidelines, which is this page here. No, that's not gonna work. Anyways, it's a diagram of installing solar collectors, and 2 says inappropriate location for solar collectors on a historic primary structure. In most cases, the LPC will consider solar collectors that are not located on the rear 2/3 of the roof link behind the front facade of a historic structure to be inappropriate. Installation of smaller or less visible collectors may sometimes be considered in this location on a case-by-case basis. And then also Adam has advised the commission on a number of times when considering flexibility to the actual guidelines to look towards the intent statements. So intent statement 2P is to facilitate energy efficiency improvements to historic structures while ensuring they are compatible with the building and surrounding historic context. So I just wanted to point out those 2 pages because they're not referenced specifically in my staff report, but they are part of the design guideline document that is currently adopted.
And Brittany covered what I was going to cover.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
Oh, and then one more thing. The roof was approved to be replaced in 2017 for this structure, so it should be a fairly new roof if that is a concern.
Okay, I'm not sure it was, but thank you very much, Brittany. All right, staff, or I mean, sorry, commissioners.
Gary?
Go ahead, George.
When, like in our case, the solar system is installed on a lease, if you have to change the roof, it's the leasing company still owns it. They remove it and they put it back after the roof is done. And that's, once it's yours, then it's your problem. But in the
Yeah,
meantime,
I'm not sure the roof is the issue here. I
No.
think yeah, that's ancillary. So Anne, the intent statement, the additional information that Brittany gave us, did that sway your thoughts at all?
I'm sorry, I'm just rereading the intent
Sure.
statement so that I understand it.
Certainly.
I just don't know. I feel like we have been in this situation and we have offered a deny. We have stayed with the denial, sticking to the pure version of the guidelines about the 2/3. And I just can't tell what is the, I mean, I'd like to hear from the other commissioners, what is the consistent way to look at this particular condition?
Well, traditionally, the consistent way has been to follow the strict 1/3, 2/3, as I understand. Jen, did you want to?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I listened to all of your deliberations, so there have been times that you all didn't agree with it because of the context, and I think that that's the critical part here. Is you have whether this. I closed the intent statement. Let me find it again. But whether this actually meets that intent statement based on the context, or whether it's simply not contextual to have solar in the rear or the front third of the roof. So it's ensuring that they're compatible with the building and the surrounding historic context is what you guys said. So I think on the other situations where the applicant has proposed to put them in the front third, you all have said that that is not contextual and it's not appropriate for the building. And if you feel that way on this one, that's fine. It just should be part of the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
See, I think that part of my issue, and I apologize if I just cut somebody off, is how much solar is the right amount of solar to put in? And typically when we see these cases, we see them presented by the solar panel manufacturers, and they show us what is the ultimate way of getting the most solar energy from the roof. But that's maybe, again, not our purview. That, 5 of those panels or 7 of those panels, on a certain level, I want to know, well, how much energy is that? Or is that, and I know that that's not our purview, but we could cover the whole thing in panels, and that would also be more solar panels than we need. But right now they're only showing them, basically on the south side. And that's one of the reasons why I'm hesitant until the guidelines are changed to do another interpretation. And I don't know if that makes sense. It's just that like I said, is what is our responsibility for how much energy we should be allowing these roofs to have? Because really, you could stick with the guidelines and have 7 panels, or I think 7 panels, I can't remember, and why is that not acceptable?
Good questions. George, did you have something to say?
Well, not anything that I really haven't said before. We're nearly carbon neutral because of the number of panels on our house, but that's just how it worked out with a low roof slope. So, but this is inevitable, and it is part of the future, I would suppose. It's just how much you want to invest in preserving the past. And that, again, I would really like to know where the 2/3 came from. And not that I would support that by any means, but yes, as much as you can get up there, because there are options to not only power your own house, but to sell back to the grid, which is, again, less carbon use by your neighbors. So
sure,
I don't know.
But
That's really all I have.
I think I think to Anne's point, that's really not in our purview. We will be discussing this in the guidelines. We will have a chance to have all those discussions, but it's really not a part of this conversation. Brittany, you've got your hand up.
I just wanted to address where the rear 2/3 came from. So when the guidelines were written, they were based on recommendations from the National Park Service and the Secretary of Interior standards, which is what our guidelines are based on as a document. So that is where that metric comes from.
It's pretty much the gold standard for all of us in historic
US
preservation.
government? Oh boy.
Julie, I think I'll maybe rock the boat a little.
Well, go for it. It's
I don't know if it's enough to shift, but I think I could be swayed here, and the reason being that I liked Gary's point that a front gabled versus a cross gabled house, depending on the proportion, might still end up with solar collectors, way up on the ridge of that cross gable, which is kind of the situation we have here, where the dormer, the front half of that dormer, which is technically the front facade of the building, is still within the rear 2/3, which would be a compliant installation that would not mitigate very similar visibility that we're seeing here. So I agree with that analysis, and Gary, I think that I appreciate you saying that. And then Brittany's pointing to the here and specifically the language in item number 2 that minimizes or mentions the installation of less visible collectors may sometimes be considered on a case-by-case basis. Makes me feel that in this case the high slope of the upper plane of the gambrel, which is not visible, as well as the ambiguity of where the dormer splits 50% instead of 2/3, 1/3, where we might see a resubmittal that would still have solar panels, which do meet the intent of the guidelines, but also, don't in that gray way that Gary pointed out. I feel like I would be comfortable pointing to those 2 things as a reason that on a case-by-case basis, this particular project is one that I would feel comfortable with.
I tend to agree with you, actually, Graham. Gary, your thoughts? Did you have any additional thoughts, Gary, after what Graham said?
Relative to this applicant, no. I think solar panels are potentially going to be very problematic when it comes to preservation guidelines. And the way, and it's going to require a lot more judgment on a case-by-case basis than sort of strict mathematical rules of acceptability. And so, and this particular application kind of brings that up. But that's all I have to say. I mean, I will support the application either with or without the condition, depending on where the majority lies. That's kind of a wishy-washy position. But I don't want to deny this. I think it needs to go forward. So wherever the majority lies, I'll support that.
All right, Gary, thank you. Brittany, did you have anything else that you wanted to say before we? Nope, you're good. Okay, excellent. All right, commissioners, do I hear a motion from the floor?
Sure. I'll make a motion that strikes the conditional approval. I move to approve application 2021 COA 397 for solar panels at 405 Emerson Street for design guidelines 233, character defining features for the Alamo Casita Historic District, the presented testimony and submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report, period.
George, thank you for the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Gary, thank you. Then let's take a vote.
Hold up. That guideline talks about the rear 2/3 of the roof. So it should reference intent statement 3P if that's where you're going.
You're
with
absolutely
it, so.
right. Do I hear?
I will, I'll make a friendly amendment to
Thanks, Graham.
guideline 2.33 for intent statement 3P.
Great. George, do you accept the friendly amendment?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Could you repeat it, Graham?
Yes, sorry, I will make a friendly amendment to substitute reference to design guideline 2.33 for intent statement 3P.
Okie doke, yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Graham, and thank you, George. Do I hear a second to the amendment?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, excellent, Gary. Thank you very much. All righty, then let's take a vote. George.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Gary.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Erica.
Oh, I wasn't aware that I could vote. Yes, aye.
Okay.
If you weren't here for the whole presentation, then you should probably abstain.
Abstain. Okay.
Then I need to abstain because I.
Sorry, my bad. Julie votes aye as well. So the motion approves without the conditions. And thank you, everybody. So on to the our next design review. And Abby is the, actually, would anybody mind if we took like a 5-minute break? I'm in need of a little more caffeine. Is that okay with you, Abby? Okay, everybody, okay. Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break. We'll be right back. Thanks for coming back, everybody. The next design review is Abby, as I said earlier, it's 2021-COA 407 at 331 University Boulevard. Abby, take it away, please.
Okay, so this is the mass form and context review for a single family infill residence in the Country Club Historic District. So this is the second review of the project. The commission denied the previous application for the project. I will show you here. Oops, went too far. They're just for reference, so you can refresh your memory of the previous review. So you have on the left the previous design that came before the commission, and then on the right the current design. So the previous denial was based on the determination that the proposed design did not show sufficient connection to the Country Club Historic District, with the proposed flat roofed form a particular concern. Some of the commissioners felt that a flat roof might possibly work if all the other aspects of the design fit the district patterns, but other commissioners felt the flat roof design is not appropriate within the Country Club District based on the Country Club design guidelines. The commission was also concerned with the irregular fenestration and a solid 6-foot fence that was proposed in the front yard. The applicant has redesigned the facade fenestration and redesigned the fence to make it more open, but the applicant has not made any changes to the proposed mass and form of the building. Staff does not find that this application sufficiently addresses the commission concerns or the request for additional district analysis that were made at the previous meeting. Commission comments at the previous meeting included that the commission was not seeing the influence of the district, that the massing and fenestration needed to draw more from district cues, that the applicant needed to provide a solid study of the district, showing an understanding of solid to void patterns, rhythms, and windows. Also needed to show more consistency, which is a part of the district character. Many of the commissioners felt that the flat roof was problematic, but also said that a roof would not need to be steeply pitched in order to provide more connection to the district. There was also discussion that a design could possibly take inspiration from the international style, particularly some of the more traditional houses in the district that include international style elements. So just kind of overview here of the places that flat roofs are mentioned in the Country Club design guidelines, since that has been a major feature of the discussion for this property. So the Country Club design guidelines do call out pitched roofs as being key in several places. In the architectural form section of the guidelines document, it talks about roofs in the district having 2 dominant characteristics: that they're steeply pitched or hipped, and that they're covered with tile, slate, or other materials, creating a strong texture. In the design review goals section of the guidelines, it states again that pitched roofs are one of the key features. And then in the actual body of the design guidelines, there are several guidelines that relate to that. It says that in character, it says that the roof form is historically steeply pitched roofs, either hip, gable, or occasionally gambrel. And then guideline D4 does say that a new roof should appear similar in form to those typical of historic houses. Pitched roofs, either hip or gable, are preferred. And that a new roof should appear similar in scale to those of typical houses seen historically in the block. So here are just, you can see the previous and the current proposed of the sides and the rear. So you can see only the facade windows have been redesigned. In addition to the massive form remaining the same, the side fenestrations have remained the same. And these are also a concern for staff. So the windows on the other sides are not similar in size, proportion, regularity, or placement to those used historically within the district. There are multiple sizes of windows, including square windows that are tiny and tall, narrow windows, and more simplification of the fenestration would be recommended by staff. And there just is the other side as well, sorry, for reference. The landmark guidelines do provide some additional flexibility for fenestration when it's not on the facade, but that's really for more flexibility is most appropriate in areas that are not readily visible. And staff would recommend that any portions with visibility from the street should feature fenestration patterns more characteristic of the district. And you can see here that pretty much the front half, large sections of the sides of the proposed infill will have street visibility. And so staff feels on these portions with street visibility, it should have a more regular fenestration pattern. So the compatibility demonstration that was included with the application is the same compatibility demonstration that was included in the previous application. Staff still finds that there's no clear historic reference shown for the proposed design at 331 University. Only one of the properties included by the applicant in their compatibility demonstration dates to within the district's period of significance, which ends at 1945. The other properties shown are properties that have been substantially altered since the period of significance. The one property that does date to within the period of significance is 545 Circle, shown on the far right there. And this is an intact example of a two-story building constructed within the period of significance with a strong international style influence. But except for the horizontal emphasis in the facade fenestration and the flat roof, staff do not find a really strong link between this design and the proposed infill. The mass and form of the proposed infill is much more complex than 545 Circle, and the property is also on a much larger lot. So it's much more, kind of a spacious, sprawling design that reads very differently on the lot than the proposed infill project. The applicant did provide some limited additional district analysis. However, the district study seems to be mainly limited just to the fenestration, with no additional study of the building forms in the district or the roof shapes. The examples shown seem to be most focused on showing a precedence for the proposed colors, with mentioning here all showing buildings that have white brick and black trim, but materials and colors, as well as other design details, are not considered during this mass form and context review. Those will be reviewed during the second design detail phase. Two of the buildings shown there are repeated from the compatibility demonstration. The new building included here is 245 Gaylord, which is shown there in the middle. This appears to have been included primarily for the color scheme and for the fact that it has some of those three-part windows. However, staff sees no clear relationship between the overall design of this Tudor-inspired property with the modern contemporary design of the infill. Additionally, the white paint and dark trim that you see on the photo in the middle there are recent additions. So you see there at the far right, that is the property in 2019. So the historic form of that property is red brick, and that white is a recent addition. So finally, the applicant did also include this additional collection of photos here to show some neighborhood connection. But again, staff finds some of the precedents, and the link here in the design is unclear. Many of the photos are close-ups without a lot of context. One of the properties, 465 Williams, is not in this district, it's in the Driving Park district. Buildings of various architectural styles are shown, including 161 Vine, which appears to take from the Norman Revival style, and 305 Franklin, which is Foursquare in style. A strong connection between these building forms and the form of the proposed infill is not evident. To be compatible, an infill structure should relate to the character defining features of the district, feature proportions that are similar to those found in the surrounding block context, and fit into the rhythm of the district. Ideally, a successful infill should either be a contemporary interpretation of a historic style or a simplified version of a historic design. But staff find that the historic reference for this design is unclear. So staff recommends denial, finding that the proposed infill does not sufficiently relate to the district.
Abby, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Abby? I don't see any. Okay, great. Jen, is the applicant ready to speak with us?
Julie,
Oh, Anne.
I'm sorry, can I just ask one question? Did the RNO comment on this application?
No, we only refer to the RNO during the first. So it did go to the RNO in the first phase, and the RNO had provided a letter of support then, though it just said that they supported it. They didn't provide any detail on any design analysis in the letter, but it did not return to the RNO again for this design.
So basically this has RNO approval, is that correct?
They did recommend initially, yes, of the previous design RNO approval.
Okay. Anything else for Abby? Okay, Jen, is the applicant ready?
Emily is working on it. We have 5 people with the same name, so she's moving them all over. I don't know which one of them is actually speaking.
Okay, that's all right. We'll figure it out.
They're going one by one.
That's okay.
And Emily, it looks like she has her hand raised as well. So one of them is out of order.
I'm almost done here.
Okay, great.
Just for the record, it's a very touchy thing where if you touch the wrong person in advance too fast, then you move everyone over. It's fun.
It's computer magic is what it is. Is everybody over?
Almost.
Okay, everyone's over, and they've also given her the option to chat.
To mute or unmute.
To unmute, yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
we don't have a chat function.
To the applicants, when you're ready to chat with us, please unmute. And then if the lead, anyone that speaks, please give your name and your full address before you speak. You all will have 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes total. And Jennifer will have a timer in her little square there. And you can keep track of how much time is there. And then also please remember that any comments need to be covered in this 10 minutes since the commission can't talk to you during deliberation if then something occurs to you as we deliberate. So begin whenever you're ready.
Hello, this is Nick Young here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, hi.
Very good. I'm trying to get my video to work, but I guess it's not working.
Like I said, computer magic.
Okay, let's see. To piggyback off your questions real quick, and yeah, we did have RNO support. We have not sent in the revised submittal. If you saw the before and afters, I presume we have their support still. I think it's, if anything, going in a much nicer direction given the context in the neighborhood. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. We also submitted a few letters from the neighborhood, people that live within the neighborhood that support it. And I believe we have somebody here with us today that also supports it. So where I'd like to start, since we have limited time, I think real quick, just to touch base on what Abigail teed us up for, it seemed as if there were a couple main concerns that the panel had last time, which included creating a more welcoming front yard sequence and kind of experience that a lot of these homes in the district have. The flat roof did not seem like a major concern. It seemed like we were kind of split. And so we are hoping that by emphasizing and cleaning up the window details, creating a more harmonized front porch and front yard sequence and entry sequence, that hopefully these flat roofs can not only possibly be allowed, but also enhance the neighborhood, similar to what the other examples we've shared in the neighborhood do. So with the front yards here, we had originally shown a 6-foot tall solid fence. This was primarily derived from not only privacy, but safety. The staff brought up some great concerns, as well as the practicality of that. For instance, we had a bench up front. A human being could very easily jump on that, jump over, there goes safety. So we get it. So we kind of extrapolated this into more of a 75% or more open metal fence, 4 feet, similar to what you see throughout the district and a couple properties. Very simple but clean, elegant of sorts. And we believe it actually helped a lot to tie into this more, let's call it a black and white motif. That again, we try to represent some of these examples. This particular instance that's on the screen here right now, all of these examples, we were trying to not only convey some of the flat roofs and the fenestration details, but I think it does actually a good job representing the kind of, there's just a lot of differences in the neighborhood. So for us trying to create this harmonized design by this flat roof design that Roxy and Sean, the owners, really enjoy, I think everything else needs to be simple and clean. And I think the staff brought up some great points. If we can go back to maybe the original photo of the before and after, I think we've gone in a really good direction with the detailing. And I think the black and white again allows us to make these clean lines make sense. In regards to some of the window comments that you brought up, Abigail, in regards to the square windows, we agree that it's not necessarily typical to have these smaller or tiny windows as you say it, but we feel as if 2x2, 3x3 windows aren't necessarily tiny. And they're actually very functional given the space beyond those exterior walls being bathrooms in these cases. So I think we'd kind of like to stand by those representations. Yes, that isometric drawing from the front left facade, you can see that facade. So I think we'd definitely be open to interpretation of those spaces. We actually have a kids room in that upper level second story. So I think we have some wiggle room if those windows are a real concern. Other than the new front yard sequence and how we experience that, and by we, I mean the public, the flat roof and the massing, we had pretty much stay the same. Instead, we decided to stay upon creating a really rhythmic fenestration pattern, more accustomed to what we saw in the neighborhood. I think there were some comments about the possible smaller windows underneath the taller windows, for instance, on the right side of our facade. I think we'd be open again to hearing your guys' thoughts on that. I feel as if we were seeing more of this rhythmic in the horizontal direction, not necessarily the verticality of these windows. Yes, I think taller rather than squatty windows, which I think we achieved. And then we also decided, you talked about this front yard, but we also decided to remove a couple of the columns of the front porch so it seemed a bit more open so that facade could pop. In regards to the massing, we do have a 50-foot wide lot. So the only 50-foot wide lot precedences we could find are really within the next 2 blocks to the west of us here. So it's very tough to find precedences to create a house that's 26 to 3,000 square feet above grade on a 50 wide lot, let alone one that meets the massing and form accordingly. So we're trying our best here at the massing form. If we can get clarity today, I think it would be great to get on the clarity for the roofs, as well as staff's interpretation of the massing. We feel as if we're going in the right direction, absolutely, and we'd love to get your guys' feedback.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? I'm seeing nothing. Okay. All right. Jen, do we have any people from the community that would like to talk?
I think.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure who's speaking.
Oh, my name's Peggy Randall, and I don't know if I'm able to speak.
Got it. Hold on a minute. I'm just trying to understand. There were so many Roxanne Davisons that we had admitted over, and so I'm guessing that it was just the same link and log in.
Okay. I apologize if I jumped in your meeting, but I am a neighbor, so if I could speak, I would love to.
Yeah, if you could say your name and your address.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you all for allowing me to come into your meeting today. I greatly appreciate it. My name is Peggy Randall. I hope you can hear me. I am a neighbor. I live at 343 University Boulevard. And I just would like to say we as neighbors want to encourage and support the Davisons in their efforts to improve the neighborhood. We know the house and the family who have the best of intentions to improve our street and neighborhood, which is very different than the rest of Country Club, as it is on a very busy street, University Boulevard. We fully support this improvement. There is no historic value at this time to this home, but it does improve the value of our properties and the appeal of our street by being a gateway to Cherry Creek North. I thank you very much and hope you will consider approving this.
Thank you. Do we have any other comment from the public?
I don't see any other hands raised, no.
Okay. All right, then we'll close public comment. All right. Abby, is there anything else that you would like to say to the commissioners to redirect, or commissioners? Have you got any questions for Abby? No, doesn't look like it. Okay, Abby, thank you very much. Good job as usual. Commissioners, let's go into deliberation. What do you think? Let's have, I'd love to hear what you think about this. Am I going to have to sing the song from Jeopardy?
Were these folks even listening when Abby did this really massive work and detailed suggestions on what they needed to do to fit in with a historic district? I don't think so. I think they're kind of, yes, gee, that's very nice, Abigail. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead with what we want to do anyway. And I would support denial of the application.
All right, George. Graham, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, well, I was going to just jump in and say I do think that you know, seeing side by side the adjustment to the front of the house with the window patterns and the open fence, I felt like that was a step in the right direction, which was great. And I know we did talk about specifically in reference to one of the case studies. It was the one on the far right side. I can't remember the address. Kind of that international style that picked up at the very end of the Country Club period of significance. Yeah, thank you for flipping over there. You know, so that conversation was definitely part of our deliberation beforehand. But I do know it was mentioned in the staff report that, you know, the Country Club design guidelines don't reference flat roofs, even though the application material did mention that. And so I think that is still a challenge, and I appreciate some of the steps that have been made, but, you know, I do agree that based on staff's analysis and the staff report, I feel like there's still ground to cover here in getting to a compatible contextual design.
Okay, Gary, did you have anything to say? You're off mute, so I thought maybe that was your signal.
Oh, that was probably an error on my part.
Okay.
I thought I was muted, but I think a flat roof structure that uses the massing that's proposed in this application is problematic in terms of its compatibility with the neighborhood. You know, the flat roof structures that are in the neighborhood are of a period and a style that is somewhat different than what's being proposed. And so I'm supporting the staff's recommendation until I hear, you know, maybe a convincing argument to the contrary. I do think there's been some improvements made, but I think the primary difficulty are the flat roofs. When I look at the buildings on this block, they're all pitched roofs. And, you know, there needs to be sort of compatibility with the heights and massing of the adjacent structures, as well as a more consistent approach to the district's guidelines. So I think this is still problematic, primarily because of the use of flat roofs. That's not to say a flat roof structure is impossible, but I think given this particular approach with this particular massing, it is a problem.
Okay, Gary. Erica, I can see you're coming up with something to say.
Yes. I agree with what Gary and Graham have said. In our previous review of this, I was a little more open to the idea of flat roofs on this building and encouraging a kind of consideration of international style. And I don't know if it was because of the windows in that earlier iteration, but those really threw me. I felt like they were very much more of a Victorian style. So it felt like a lot of a mishmash. And it felt like international style might kind of help kind of bring some of these pieces together, like flat roof. But seeing this here, and I do agree that I think there are some improvements. I think the grouping of windows fits within the context of the district overall, but it all depends on how they're applied to the building. And the cleaning up of the porch, as Nick pointed out, I think all of those are good improvements. But seeing this as it is today, I do agree with Abby's assessment that there still needs to be some really tying into the context of the district and pointing out the actual ways in which the applicant feels that this massing actually fits within what is seen in the district. And I'm not sure they could do that. So I agree that there's still some work to do, and I would support denying it at this time.
All right, Erica, thanks. Anne, did you want to make any further comments?
Yes, because I think that Erica and I were sort of going in the same direction the last time. But I don't know, can you bring up sheet A11? So I think that it's not just the roofs that are the issue, it's actually the volumes. Because in the country club, and I'm looking at their analysis. I mean, the buildings, the structures in a country club tend to be blocks. They tend to be blocks, not broken blocks, but basically blocks that are shifted here and there. And they say their guidelines say vertical. The blocks tend to go up straight. They don't sort of break in the middle the way this one does. And I think the thing that's sort of disappointing to me about this is that this design looks very generic. I think that you see this design all over town. And it's generic and interesting because it's probably actually was originally based on the international style. It's sort of the poor man's international style, which got taken over, and it has sort of become the style du jour. And I know that that's not really pertinent to this, but in order for the applicant to make the case that they were really following the international style, it'd have to be much more volumetric, which it's not. So I even think if you put, pitched roofs on all of these volumes, and if you look at A11, which is the back, and you just see it's a mishmash of different parts and pieces, even the whole, but this is great. I mean, if you could pitch all of this you want, it still would not really make the guidelines. So, I mean, that being the case, I think there was an opportunity to go for one of the alternate styles in Country Club, but it does not look to me like the applicant has made that happen. And I support the staff's recommendation.
All right, Anne, thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughts. All righty, am I hearing a motion from the floor, please? Erica? You're muted, my friend.
Okay, I will make them. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Thanks for your patience. I have two screens and looking at one to get my notes.
We're good, thank you.
Okay. I move to deny application number 2021-COA-407 for the mass form and context of new infill at 331 University Boulevard, as per Country Club Design Guidelines D1, D3, D4, and F3. Design Guidelines 4.3 through 4.5, 4.7, 4.8, 4.16, and 4.19. Character defining features for the Country Club Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Erica, thank you for making the motion. Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Graham. All right, let's take a vote. George.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Gary.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Erica.
Aye.
And Julie also votes aye. So thank you very much. The motion as presented carries. All right, we have one more item on our design review. And
Can I
Brittany,
ask a quick question?
sure, George.
Anne, looking at the front facade, what would be the difference between this house and what I would call a mid-century modern?
How long do we have here?
Oh, okay. Never mind. Withdrawn.
Yeah. There's a discussion, and there are a couple of mid-century modern experts on the panel, so I know that there are people that can help you answer that. But
Maybe
let's move
offline.
on. So the next staff person is Brittany, and it's 2021-COA-405 at 900 Oneida Street. Brittany, you have the floor.
I'm just advancing through the slides here. Okay, so our next project is for a pop-top addition at 900 Oneida Street within the Montclair Historic District. This structure is considered non-contributing as it was constructed in 1946, and the period of significance for Montclair is prior to including 1940. This property, as you can see in this aerial image, is located on a corner and is across from Kittredge Park. Here are just some views of the structure. This is 1 and 5 are essentially the front facade of the structure, and 2 is the elevation that fronts onto East 9th Avenue. In these photographs, you can see the sunroof addition to the home that is located along East 9th Avenue. And then also at the very rear there, the attached garage that was constructed onto this home as well. As this home is outside of the period of significance, these additions were also constructed outside of the period of significance, but the sunroom addition was probably constructed in the 1960s, and the garage addition, or apologies, the garage addition was constructed in the 1960s, and the sunroom addition was constructed sometime after Sanborn Maps stopped documenting this area. So I'm not entirely sure, but again, this is a non-contributing structure. It is a 1-story structure. So the proposed top addition is going to be set back 13 feet 11 inches from the front facade of the structure. Because this is a non-contributing structure, there is no requirement that it be set back 15 feet from the primary facade, like we do have for our contributing structures when we're reviewing pop tops for those. It has a total height of 22 feet 3 inches and will create equal floor-to-floor heights between the ground floor and the new pop top addition. Because this property has such a large tree lawn, it's actually going to be set back over 81 feet from the curb on this side of the street. So if you look at this aerial image here, you can just see that the front yards are very large here, and the property line is not actually at the curb here. It's set back a little ways from the curb. So it is set back significantly from the curb edge there. So here is the existing site plan and showing the proposed site plan of that pop top addition. Again, this is where you can see the property line is not right at the curb edge and is located a little bit back from the street frontage there. So there will be no additional additions to the side and rear of this home. This will be strictly a pop top addition. The applicant is proposing to alter the existing garage by installing a glass door, but no other changes are proposed to the current addition or the current structure. This is the proposed demolition. So it will involve 38 square feet of demolition of the roof structure. This is under 40%, so it's not classified as a total demolition by zoning. And then again, because this is a non-contributing structure, any demolition on the structure would not actually trigger a public hearing because this is non-contributing. So here is the existing structure. And then here is the proposed pop top addition. So the proposed pop top addition will have vertical siding. Staff is concerned about this application of vertical siding because it's not a material that is typically found within the Montclair Historic District. And additionally, our guidelines recommend a simple combination of materials. The primary structure is brick, and the sunroom and garage addition do blend seamlessly with the structure. So we do have some concerns that the material application is atypical of the Montclair Historic District and is not also tying in well with the existing primary structure and will accentuate the visibility of that pop top addition. In addition to concerns over the material cladding, there are 6 different window types and proportions proposed for this pop top addition. For the south elevation, staff did indicate to the applicant that the windows on the south elevation facing Kit Ridge Park could be a little bit larger because of the existing sunroom additions. But we are concerned that the mullions in those windows don't line up and don't have a relationship to one another, and the proportions are different. On the front facade, we are concerned about a horizontally and vertically oriented window for the pop top addition, and we're also concerned about the alignment between the window on the first floor and the second floor. So within the Montclair Historic District, you can find several different styles ranging from Queen Anne to Spanish and Mission Revival. Typically, there is a strong sense of connection and vertical alignment and symmetry between windows on the ground floor and the upper floors where the structures are more than one story. So we do have some concerns over the window alignment that is proposed here and the number and types of windows that are proposed for this pop top addition. This project will have a second floor rooftop deck. There are 2 materials proposed for that railing. On the south elevation, it appears to be a metal railing. And then on the east and north elevation, it will be that same cladding material that you see on the pop addition. So second floor decks are typical in the Montclair Historic District. However, they're generally of a small scale. So staff do have some concerns over the size and scale of the proposed second floor deck that you are seeing in the south elevation. In terms of the pop top design, it does have a hipped and gable roof form. However, staff have some concerns over the orientation of the ridge profile. On the existing structure, the ridge is short along the primary elevation, and in the proposed pop, the ridge is oriented on its long side. So we do have some concerns over the ridge length not matching on the pop top addition and just creating more complexity in design and drawing your eye upward for the pop top addition. Our guidelines do talk about at minimal additions should be neutral in design, and staff are very concerned that this addition is not neutral in design. And we do have some concerns over the material cladding and the size of the deck. So just in terms of what is proposed currently, staff are recommending denial. We do think it would be possible to do a pop-top addition on this site in this particular home. However, as currently designed, we don't feel that it is fitting in well with the character of the Montclair Historic District, nor is the addition strongly relating to the existing non-historic primary structure. So we do have some concerns over that as well. So we are recommending denial at this time of this pop-top addition.
Brittany, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Brittany? I'm not seeing any questions. All right, Jen, do we have the applicant ready?
Yes, in just a second. Emily's moving them over.
Sure.
One by one. They should both be in now.
Okay, great. Hi to the applicants. Before you begin, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. And before you start, please tell us your name and your address.
Great. Hi everyone. I am Kyle Malone. I live at 900 Oneida Street. So I'm speaking on behalf of my wife and my little kiddos, 5-year-old Callan, 3-year-old Celine, who are back from Montclair Elementary. So they may run through here and rip my computer right out from under me, which I apologize for in the meantime. Thank you so much for your time today. You know, we're just starting this process. I know it's been a long day. So thank you for your time and your partnership in this process. My wife and I moved to Montclair about 1.5 years ago. Since then, we've just fallen in love with the neighborhood. It's been welcoming. We've met so many amazing people. We really feel the strength of this community. We see it in the neighbors we've talked to. We love the history. We love the traditions of this neighborhood. You know, one of the traditions we've been warned about Halloween, which we're very excited about. Halloween on Oneida Street. It's apparently a big thing. So we are excited to kind of help forward that community tradition as well. We just want to make this, you know, this house our forever home. We have a growing family, and just very simply put, we just need to expand, and we need to do it, you know, thoughtfully. We want to stay with the aesthetics of the historic Montclair area. And this was just kind of our, you know, our shot of what we were coming up with to begin with. But we look forward to working with you through this process. We value your guidance and expertise. You know, we're here to listen. So I just want to thank you for your time and your guidance. I'm going to pass it over to Rachel or Leah, if you're on, I'm not sure.
Perfect. Thanks, Kyle. I think that Leah is not joining us, unfortunately, but also I would like to thank y'all in reviewing this. This is our first shot at it. We have chatted with Brittany back and forth a bit about the project and got to this portion that we felt pretty confident in reviewing with you all. And in full, I think that, you know, myself, and actually let me introduce myself. I'm Rachel Nagy, and at 2819 West 27th Avenue, as requested. But overall, I think, you know, the client is looking to convert their existing 3-bed, 2-bath home in this neighborhood into an art space with a 2nd-story master addition to accommodate their growing family, as kind of exhibited. While this home exhibits the simple ranch with additions previous to the current owner, we are wishing to expand a more livable home for the clients and any future homeowners to come in this neighborhood. The addition would include a main bedroom suite with deck to enhance the park view. Having a corner lot is an awesome thing to have in this neighborhood, and I know there are a lot of non-contributing structures around the park that also made this a little bit more of an adventure, but we are looking to match any, you know, recommendations and also have that conversation and dialogue with Landmark, with the Arno, anyone who is willing to give something that will provide the best structure for this house. This was most exhibited off of the best use of space and the way that we are trying to keep the existing structure as it is and come up from those additions as well, and as convert those conditions as we go up. So any of the Arno suggestions, staff suggestions, those are well, accommodated as far as we can. I think the non-contributing structure effect is hard in some aspects because the street has such a varying effect, as well as the neighboring block. So there are about 7 different window styles on this house as it exists. And we just maybe want to seek more out of you as a collective to get what you're looking for from a non-contributing structure, and also say we're trying to respect the existing structure and its materials and all of that, where we do have vertical wood siding on the existing structure. I know they're accentual, but with the additions like these that are recessed from the main structure, bringing brick up there isn't maybe necessarily the best. So really any guidance is accepted. And as Kyle said, this is their forever home. They would love to have this their forever home, and buying in a historic district lends us to a lot of, great and awesome things, but also adding on to those, we need some favorable guidance from y'all. So outside of that, I don't think I have much to say. I would just rather welcome any insights and would rather look through some of the suggestions as well as staff suggestions. I mean, changing materials, getting our railing away from metal and changing it to wood, shrinking the second story, roof deck to something more comparable in size to the neighborhood, changing the cladding, anything like that that's really hindering our ability to move forward in the project is obviously welcome. Our ceiling heights, I believe, was another thing mentioned. And I think for us keeping a more usable space on this structure, it would be best to have our ceiling heights from first floor to second floor to make it the max usable square footage that we can, even for resale. That would be awesome, but I understand the concerns with that and historic nature. So yes, overall, I believe all notes were warranted, but this is our first crack at our meeting, and I would love to hear the dialogue thus far and would obviously be open to any suggestions and hope to be able to revise in compliance. And I think Kyle would feel the same.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. All right, Rachel, thank you very much.
I just wanted to add that it looked like Leah joined a little bit later, and so I promoted her. So yeah. So you still have 2
We've got
minutes.
2 minutes something.
Yeah,
If
2
we-
minutes 36 if you'd like to keep going.
Leah wants to say anything?
I'm sure Kyle very much represented both of our viewpoints and love of the neighborhood, love of the lot, and, are very committed to, adhering to what we need to do to just make this livable for us long term. We've already established really lovely relationships in the neighborhood. Our kids, are in school there. So I don't want to take much of your time and be duplicative, but I just want to state that much like Rachel and Kyle have suggested, we are open to commentary to be able to make this our true forever home.
Okay, great. Thank you, Leah. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicants? Does not look like it. Okay, Jen, do we have anyone from the public that would like to comment?
Yep. Carrie O'Shea's here, and you can unmute yourself whenever you're ready. Carrie.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. Give us your full name and your address before you speak, and then you've got 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm Carrie O'Shea. I live at 1347 Olive Street, Denver 80220 in Montclair. I'm the vice president of the Historic Montclair Community Association, and I'm on the design review committee. So I just wanted to say that we did review this application, and we wrote a letter with our comments. We submitted it to Brittany Bryant. At this time, we don't find that this pop-top proposal is compatible with our historic district. It just has too great of a visual impact on the block and on the surroundings. We're particularly concerned about that large wraparound deck that's not seen in our district at all. And we observe there are just too many window sizes that are different, and other concerns that we put in our letter. And we read Brittany's staff brief, which is incredibly thorough, and we support everything she says. So, and also her comment that yes, it's possible to add a second story onto this home, but in this particular proposal is not appropriate at this time. And so we just wanted to be here to represent the district and give our comments. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Jen, is there anyone else wanting to comment?
I don't see any other hands up. No.
Okay, great. All right. Brittany, did you have anything that you wanted to say to the commissioners after the presentation?
I do believe I forwarded Montclair's letter to you. Okay, great. Couldn't find that email right off the top of my head, but I was sure I did that, and I saw Erica shaking her head confirmative. So.
Okay. All right, commissioners, do you have any other questions for the staff before we go into deliberation? Doesn't look like it. Great. Thank you very much, Brittany, and thanks to the applicants. Commission, let's go ahead and go into deliberation. What do you think? What are some of your comments? They were emphatic. They wanted comments to help them design. So what's everybody thinking?
Julie, I'm going to grab some low-hanging fruit here to start the conversation and throw it out there, see what the commission thinks. But one of the first comments in the staff report for design guideline 4.4, and also one that the applicants mentioned, was the plate-to-plate height. And I think that it is true in a lot of the older and Victorian era structures, but this being a non-contributing and mid-century structure, to get back to that from our last conversation, I feel like a more equal height of stories is probably more appropriate. And you know, that one was kind of the first bullet point on the list, but one that was also specifically mentioned. And you know, Montclair is such a diverse district that I think in this case, with some detailing, you know, and potentially patterns of fenestration, other things to help balance those different levels, that a similar height, you know, feels like it would be a workable thing. But I'd be open to hearing what others have to say about that, of course.
Okay, great, Graham. Thank you very much. What do my architects think? Anne, what do you think?
I agree with the staff report. I think the guideline that I am looking at, it's either 4.4 or 4.5, but it has to do with respecting the mass. Let's make it 4.5. Design a new building to be recognized as current construction while respecting key features of the historic district as well as surrounding context. Actually, that's not the one I'm looking for. I'm sorry. I guess that what I'm looking for is that the existing structure has a certain layout and certain volumes. And I think that one of the reasons that the proposed pop top is not successful is because it doesn't really recognize the building that's underneath it. And I think that I agree with the staff. I think that following the volumes of the house, even though I understand it's a non-contributing house, but just following those volumes in some way, there are 3 volumes, and just sort of respecting that is going to lead to a more successful and unified looking project. And I think a more unified looking project is also one that will look as if it fits into the it fits better into the neighborhood because it will fit within the existing structure.
Okay, Anne. Erica?
I guess I would just add to Anne's thoughts about unifying the volumes. I think that's why there's concern about these different window types, although there's several different types of windows on the existing house. The ones that we see on this pop top before us today don't really correspond to what we see underneath them, either in placement or size or both. So I think that would help a lot as far as unifying the two. So I agree with Brittany's report. I think it was very thorough, and I think her point about the this again just speaks to unifying the volumes, but the ridgeline of what we see from the front, I think that's an excellent point to make about that longer ridgeline on the addition is competing with the narrower ridgeline below it, and that creates a lot of it becomes problematic. So
okay, Erica. Gary, what are you thinking?
I don't know that I have anything constructive to add to what's already been said. I think, what seems to be the theme here is that the addition, its massing, its materials, its fenestration, all of that pays little attention to the existing building, which, has some nice lines to it, and is very representative of a mid-century house of its period. And so I think it's going to be challenging to add a second story onto this structure, but I think it can be done. But it has to, there has to be a lot of attention paid to the massing and the character of what is already there.
Okay, Gary. George, you haven't weighed in yet.
Well, I was wondering what was bothering me about the design, and you guys have pointed out that it's the alignment of the windows that really kind of, and I'm also encouraged by the idea that, yes, you can pop this one and it can be done, just not in this iteration, I don't think. But yeah, they need to change some of the windows and the deck. So I'm all with Brittany's assessment of the entire project.
Okay. All right. Before we take a vote, are there any other comments that you'd like for the applicants? Because they really wanted comments from us. I think we've got some helpful things for them. But if anybody has anything else to say, Graham?
I was going to just, yeah, I think that the siding was another component. I don't particularly have anything to add about that. I agree with staff also. I think looking at some alternative types of siding, but I know that was another component discussed in addition to the massing that might be helpful to discuss among the members here.
Okay, Graham. All right. I think we've got some good thoughts for the applicants. So if anyone would like to make a motion.
I can make a motion. Oh,
Anne, thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move to deny application number 2021-COA-405 for the Pop Top addition at 900 Oneida Street, as per design guidelines 4.5 to 4.8 and 4.17, character defining features for the Montclair Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
And thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All righty, let's take a vote. George,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
and Julie also votes aye. All righty. That is the end of our design review projects. Jennifer Capetto, do you have any business items or discussion items for us?
Trying to do too many things at once. I'm trying to stop sharing. Just wanted to give you guys a reminder about the design guideline update kickoff meeting that's happening next Wednesday, the 29th. It's from 6 to 7:30 and it's on Zoom. And we ask the commissioners attend in a listening capacity if you are able to. If you are not able to attend in person, then please listen to the recording and I'll provide that to you all, a link to that as well. Because I know that a lot of people have evening things to do, but that's why we're recording it so that more people can watch. And also for those of you who are in the public attending the meeting right now, then you can, that it will be recorded as well. So the other thing just to let you guys know about, we have decided that we're not having anyone in the web building come in for LPC meetings anymore to set up a computer. There has not really been any need for it or any demand for it amongst the public. The only time that there was demand for it was during the La Alma Lincoln Park Historic District designation. And we would like to continue doing it for district designations or for very, very controversial design review or owner opposed designations. So when we think that there's going to be normally, if we were all in person, there would be a huge group of people in the room. We will have someone available at the web building, and we'll put that on our agenda. But for the moment, we are stopping that practice because it just simply wasn't used, and it's a lot of staff time to set up and babysit a computer.
Sure, I get it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Gary.
Is there any indication about when these meetings might go back to live and in person?
I had a feeling you were going to ask that. That's what my was. I was just about to launch into that. So we still don't have the technology. I said it would happen in August. I said it would happen in September. It's the end of September almost, and we still don't have it yet. That said, the technology services who placed the order has been getting in a bunch of them. So they're coming in. I think it's imminent. But there's also a lot of concern about the Delta variant, and there is no mask requirement for being in person. And so that is of concern of staff, and I imagine it's of concern of commissioners. We've had I've had a commissioner reach out to me about that as well. So I don't anticipate this is going to happen anytime soon. So stay tuned. I'll keep you posted, but at the moment we don't have the technology, so that's not even a conversation starter as to when. But for all I know, it could come in next week, and then we'll have to have that conversation.
Who knows? All right.
We just want to, I mean, the safety of staff and the commission are of our greatest importance, and also of members of the public. We would do this hybrid so that the public could come in virtually. But that means that if we're in person, they can also come in person. And we want to make sure that the staff and the commissioners feel safe in that environment.
All righty. Well, no, I know you'll let us know when that happens. So
yep.
Is there anything else?
No, I think as far as I know, you guys are at 100% for compliance with the submitting of your cards to the city. So thank you for doing that in such a timely manner. I have not heard that you are not in compliance, which is great. I would have been told already. So
yeah, you'd hear for sure. Indeed. All righty. Well, if there's nothing else, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It is 4:28 according to my Swiss Army watch. So we are adjourned. Everybody, it's great to see you. Sorry, I was a little disjointed. We had kind of a strange afternoon here in my neighborhood. So